Elected officials entrusted with ensuring the safety of the residents in the city of New York, it is our collective duty to address this ever-growing public safety environmental issue immediately. As such, I am requesting your support on my bill, Intro 1131, which would require all mobile car washes to obtain a license in order to operate, and would grant the New York City Department of Sanitation and the NYPD expanded authorization to tow any vehicles illegally conducting businesses in our city streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. So for our hearing, we do have a pre-panel that will testify and answer questions before we hear from the admin. So I'm going to turn it over to our committee counsel to administer any administerings. Never mind. We're going to call up Local 108 and Local 813 to come up and testify. Sorry, I didn't know.
Mr. Daniel Wright and Mr. Kajim Hill, please.
Awesome. Whenever you're ready, you can go ahead. Sure.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Nurse, council members, committee members, DSNY. I'm Daniel Wright, president of Teamsters Local 813. We represent members working in the private sanitation industry in New York City and the surrounding areas. Teamsters Local 813 have always been and will continue to be champions of safety. The sanitation industry worker faces one of the most challenging and dangerous professions in the nation. It is essential that all workers receive proper training and that training be a continuous and ongoing process. Workers need the proper safety gear to protect them from injury, the elements, and to make them visible to others. Vehicles must be kept in proper order and pre-tripped prior to the start of routes. Of the many workers Local 813 represents, I can say that the companies that employ them are doing the right thing. Our members are trained, provided with proper safety gear, and drive safe vehicles in a safe manner. Teamsters Local 813 actively communicates with our members during shop visits to ensure all safety measures are being observed and often sit in on company safety meetings. Teamsters are committed to keeping our members safe and keeping the roadways and the communities they serve safe. I applaud the city and the council and thank them for taking an interest in this important issue. Currently, the city is awarding bids in the commercial waste zone process. The safety workers of companies bidding should be held in the highest regard. We cannot allow safety to be regulated to a lesser role in this process. In fact, it should likely be the highest consideration. We must do that for the workers in this industry and the communities they serve. We cannot allow the commercial waste zone process to be unfairly weighted toward price. We must stand by the workers in this industry in every possible way to keep them safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to testify?
Good afternoon. My name is Kajim Q. Hill. I'm from the Bronx, and I have been working in the sanitation industry for over 14 years. Today, I'm a business agent and organizing director at Labor's Local 108. I am proud to represent workers who perform a crucial role in maintaining the cleanliness and health in our city. Workers in the private sanitation industry are often subjected to hazardous conditions because of the negligence of their employers. It is my hope that bringing attention to these issues, the city will take action to ensure the system of commercial waste zones gets implemented in a way that rids the industry of bad employers and advances the safety and well-being of workers. As an organizer, I have seen firsthand people working under unsafe conditions. For example, I have seen trucks in service which lack basic safety features and haven't undergone proper maintenance. Workers are frequently exposed to risk such as malfunctioning brakes, worn out tires. They often don't follow basic safety precautions. When doing waste collections and disposal and lack of essential PPE, like proper work clothing, masks, gloves, and respiratory protection. Often, workers don't receive training and are paid in cash. These deficiencies jeopardize the lives and well-being of workers and the general public. Why don't more workers come forward to shed light on these conditions? Because many of their employers use intimidation tactics to silence them. They take advantage of workers' needs to feed their family. This is why I am hopeful that the implementation of commercial waste zones can transform the industry and improve the wages and working conditions of these workers. I am advocating for a clear and accessible path for workers to come forward and provide information to authorities regarding wage theft, dangerous working conditions. I am advocating that the city do more to ensure workers are educated about their rights and are protected from employer retaliation. While we wait for the CWZ's full implementation, we still need to protect the workforce that cleans our city every day. I encourage that this committee and council to take action now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you both. I have some questions, and if council members have any questions for this panel, just let us know. I wanted to acknowledge Councilmember Menon, and then two people signed up to testify for the public housing hearing, and that is, I believe, in the committee room next door, just to let you know, so you don't sit here for this one. So thank you both for testifying and for the work that you do. We know that workers from both of your locals and workers that are not in a union shop or with a union card are incredibly important to this city. Both of you alluded to the CWZ, and just from conversations we have had, as we're preparing to implement this first phase of the CWZ, we know some companies are, there's going to be there's awardees and there's folks that aren't going to win. So there's going to be some folks that potentially go out of business, merge with other companies or other carders, and just wondering how you all are approaching this transition and what are some of your concerns. How can the council, the administration best support workers who are going to go through this or who may be out of work soon? And feel free to either of you to answer.
I think what's important is, we're in a phase right now where the commercial waste zones have been spoken about for many years, and we're finally getting to the process. There are a lot of rumors out on the street or perhaps misinformation. I think it might be helpful if, once decisions are made and contracts are awarded, that this information be brought to the public as quickly as possible. I think there's a lot of uncertainty throughout the private sanitation industry with the owners of companies, and that uncertainty is unfortunately being passed along to the workforce because, we have workers that are uncertain if their employee is going to last, if their shop is going to be expanded with additional workers, or if the workforce is going to be cut. So I think it's important that some clear information be brought to the industry with some decisions that have been made.
Thank you.
Local 108 is excited to see CWZ moving forward. Our biggest concern is to make sure there is a mechanism for workers to come forth with issues of wage theft and dangerous working conditions.
Okay. How have the new containerization rules impacted routes or other parts of the operation?
I think, in the beginning, we, like with any change, there are growing pains. And I think in the beginning, it was proving to be difficult for some of our workers in the industry. The containers being issued by the companies, the companies are basically required to protect their container or be responsible for their container. So we had a situation where many small companies were locking their containers or chaining them up so they wouldn't get stolen, or misplaced. That was creating an additional burden on workers because now they have to lift the heavy bags out of the containers. We had one of our employers that kind of took the lead with speaking with their customers. The ones that did want to keep their containers chained up or locked, they created a system of a padlock with a universal key so the workers could have access to be able to unlock the containers to dump them. I think as we get through all those issues and ultimately the workers get used to the new system, it's going to be a better system both for the city and the worker ultimately.
I have to agree with Dan on this one. Our employers are going through the same issues. Dumping as well. We have customers dumping their garbage into our contractors' containers, so we are having to use chains and locks on these bins. But that's about it.
And have you all had any conversations with DSNY about this?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
No, neither have I.
Thank you. How prevalent is cash wages in your experience? If you want to share a story by chance, have you ever reported this? If so, could you share the process or an outcome? Have you successfully seen a cash wage situation be addressed? Have you engaged with any agencies around it?
I'm an example. I'm a former worker at Sanitation Salvage. I was getting paid cash there for about 2 to 3 years. At that time, it took a lot just to get my voice heard. I have knocked on every door possible. When it comes to the DA's office, BIC, end up reaching out to the new commissioner. I forgot his name. I think it was Brownell at the time. And we had a meeting and he addressed those concerns at the time.
And so it was a successful outcome for you?
Well, the company is no longer in business, so I believe it was successful.
Great. How prevalent to this day is the practice of hiring day laborers for conducting collections, if you've seen any?
I'm going to say that that's more common, most likely in the non-union quarters. Small private companies are obviously still, utilizing day workers, night workers, paying them cash off the street, and obviously this, creates a multitude of problems, including, safety issues, because these people are not trained, they're not given the right equipment, and these things, need to be continued to be monitored. Obviously, that wouldn't be occurring within any of the union labor. The employers are, sort of held to strict standards, and we look in on that. So.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, no problem. How prevalent is the practice of hiring day laborers, people getting paid, just brought on for the day, paid cash? Are you seeing any of that?
I am not, Local One Away hasn't seen that yet. We have spoken to workers that in the past have worked for certain employees that's in the industry now that are still being paid, were getting paid cash.
Thank you. Just a few more questions. In your experience, how often are workers receiving training?
I know that the employers, that are affiliated with Local 813 have continuous training, monthly basis for many situations, safety meetings, training, anytime there's any updates to equipment or anything like that, the workers are trained quickly and appropriately.
Same for Laborers Local 108. Our contractors are monthly safety meetings. They are also addressing the concerns that from day-to-day season changes and things of that nature.
Okay, and then just a final couple questions. One, are you seeing more women enter into this workforce? Are you seeing more diversity in leadership or executive roles? And it could be within places you've worked or at from your observations and experience engaging with folks?
We have seen more women getting into the sanitation department. That is definitely diversity, yes.
Okay.
I think we're seeing, more ethnic diversity. As far as women coming into the field, I don't think we've seen too much in that avenue.
Do you have an observation of what roles women are taking up in the sanitation sector?
For instance, they were on the Packer truck and roll-off division.
I'm sorry, was that on the Packer truck?
Packer and roll-off division.
Yeah, we've seen a few drivers in the Packer division.
And lastly, for workers operating transfer facilities, what particular challenges or concerns are they facing?
I think volume is probably the major concern that the workers in the transfer stations would face.
Volume, you said?
Volume, yeah.
Okay.
Local 108 doesn't have a position at the moment.
Okay. Councilmember Marjorie Velasquez, you had a question?
Thank you for coming out today. Just wanted to ask, are you aware of any employees injured on the job and what has that experience looked like? And are these employees forced to continue to work through injury or left not being able to work without pay?
Any of the employees that are injured with any of our local A13, all proper, workers' comp claims are handled appropriately. I don't think anybody would ever consider not reporting an injury in the workplace. These things are dealt with, in a very efficient manner when it comes to injuries in our industry with the Carters that we're involved with.
Same as Labor's Local 108, any workers' comp issues is handled correctly through our employers.
Thank you.
Councilmember Menon, did you have a question?
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Chair. I just wanted to ask a quick question. So obviously, it's very concerning that New York State remains in the top 5 states in terms of the most sanitation-related fatalities. So it's my understanding that the most common cause of some of these fatalities has to do with the truck itself. Can you talk a little bit about what can be done? How often? Are we inspecting the trucks enough? Are we replacing old trucks with new trucks? What can be done to increase worker safety, in your opinion?
I think you're seeing an evolution of new trucks being put on the road on a regular basis. Clean vehicles, safe vehicles. The vehicles in the employers that Local 813 deals with are kept in prime operating condition. The workers are pre-tripping their vehicles prior to going out on routes, and if there are any issues with the vehicles, they are reported and dealt with swiftly and efficiently. I think that a lot of the sensationalism in the news about accidents and things like that, you can trace that back to the safety records of the companies that are involved in these issues. Time and time again, you're seeing the same companies involved in the same situations, and that's something that needs to be looked into further.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question again?
Oh, sure. I'm just trying to get an understanding of, are there certain recommendations either of you have on the trucks themselves? Because it's my understanding that New York State is in the top 5 states for worker fatalities. What can we do to increase safety in terms of the trucks? Do they need to be, is it an inspection? Is it replacement? What recommendations do you have?
I think it definitely should be an inspection of these trucks. Where the employers that Local 108 deals with, their trucks are tip-top shape. But like I've witnessed other companies, their trucks are not in the best conditions. But I think there should definitely be some type of inspection going on for those particular companies. As far as the fatalities is concerned, a lot of these workers work under stressful conditions, working to get the route up and not getting paid the proper hours worked, so they rush just to please the employer.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Okay. And just to acknowledge, Councilmember Farias is here. I did have a clarifying question for PPE, because somebody mentioned it in their testimony. At least for your workers, are employers required to provide certain PPE items for folks on the job?
Well, as far as requirements, of course, reflective gear is, necessary. Gloves are necessary, safety shoes, work boots, things along those lines. And then, I think anything else that any of our members would need to feel safe or do their job safely or more efficiently, they would request, and it would be provided.
As far as Labor's Local 108, our employers do provide the proper PPE gear as far as the work boots once a year, vests, visible vests, and sweaters, even raincoats, they provide this as well. But I've witnessed other companies in the industry, they don't provide that. We have workers working in regular street clothes, black clothes, you can't even see them.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you all want to share, even if it's not your particular workers that are organized, if there's anything you've seen that you think, or any recommendations for how the council can support you, let us know.
Yeah, and just to expand a little bit on what Q was saying, I think a lot of these incidents where you have, workers visible that do not appear to be wearing safety equipment. You see workers on the back of garbage trucks in sneakers without any reflective gear. These are obviously people that are being hired as day laborers, most likely as, cash off the books. If the city sees things like this, they should, try to do something to stop it. If we as unions can do everything we can to protect the members that we represent, and we do, and everything seems to be working efficiently with that program. With that said, we're always actively looking to expand into other areas. We're constantly talking with workers in the street and trying to get them to unionize. To let them know that we would be there to support them and, help make their jobs safer as well. So I think if the city could sort of, get involved with, when we see these situations occurring, something needs to be done about it.
I said it, I'm gonna say it one more time. I think the city can help Labor's Local 108 out with creating some type of mechanism for workers that's dealing with waste, theft, and dangerous working conditions.
All right. Well, thank you both for testifying on behalf of workers, sanitation workers. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair Nurse. Thank you, Council Committee.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it to our committee council to now swear in the admin.
Thank you. You may approach the table. Okay, thank you all for being here today. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the council members, and to respond truthfully to council member questions?
I do.
Thank you. Chair?
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Chair Nurse and the members of the City Council Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. I am Javier Lohan, the First Deputy Commissioner of New York City Department of Sanitation. I am joined today by Ryan Marola, Chief of Staff and Deputy Commissioner for External Affairs, Joshua Goodman, Deputy Commissioner for Public Affairs and Customer Experience, and Kate Kitchener, Director of Recycling and Sustainability. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on worker safety and protections at DSNY, as well as on introductions 978, 1131, and 1161. I'm going to start off with the Trash Revolution statement. As Commissioner Tisch shared with this committee in September, the city is in the midst of a trash revolution. The Adams administration has implemented an ambitious and game-changing set of new initiatives, programs, and policies around reducing the impact of trash bags on the sidewalks, fighting rats, and cleaning up our city. I'd like to provide a brief summary of our agenda's milestones to date, starting with set-out times. In April, we implemented a new and simple standard for set-out times. No trash in black bags can be set out for collection earlier than 8 p.m. Trash in bins can be set out earlier, 6 p.m. for residents, or an hour before closing for businesses. Business container rules. In August and September, we implemented rules that required food-related businesses and chain stores to containerize their refuse. In mid-September, we announced a proposed rule that would extend this requirement to every commercial business in the city beginning on March 1st, 2024. That means that 100% of the city's businesses will be required to containerize their refuse, accounting for nearly half of all trash in the 5 boroughs. Residential container rules. We are taking a thoughtful approach to residential containerization and focusing in on 2 parts: solutions for buildings that have 9 or fewer units, and solutions for those with 10 or more units. 2 weeks ago, we announced our go-forward strategy for 9 or fewer units. By fall 2024, those residences will be required to use containers for refuse, and by summer 2026, those containers must be official NYC Willie bin. That will cover 95% of all residential properties in the city. The official NYC bins will be available for purchase at a price point far below the market value for comparably sized bins and will be designed for mechanized collection. We are still considering the right solution for 10 or more units. To that end, we are piloting shared containerization in Hamilton Heights, which includes 14 schools and 10 residential blocks. Our drive to containerize also celebrated another milestone on October 2nd of this year. Curbside collection of organics began in Brooklyn. All Brooklyn residents can source separate organics into containers with secure lids for guaranteed collection of that material on their recycling day. As of October 21st, under the rules enacted pursuant to Local Law 85 of 2023, organic separation became mandatory in both Brooklyn and Queens. Until spring 2025, the department will only issue warnings so that residents in all 5 boroughs will have had curbside collection for at least 6 months before we issue violations. Now, I would like to turn to the topic of today's hearing: safety and protections for New York City sanitation workers. Workforce safety is a guiding principle for this department. As a former sanitation worker myself who started in 1999 behind a truck, I know firsthand the importance of making sure that New York City Strongest can safely collect, clean, and plow our streets. Let me be clear, being a sanitation worker is grueling, difficult, and labor-intensive work, and our safety policies are designed to account for the realities of collecting and cleaning. The department takes great pride in preparing our workforce for the challenging nature of the job. The department trains its sanitation workers from day one in the Sanitation Academy on proper lifting techniques to minimize strain and chance of injury. Sanitation workers receive a uniform allowance that allows them to purchase department-prescribed personal protective equipment, which includes work gloves, boots, eye coverings, and reflective clothing. We instruct sanitation workers on how to exit their vehicles to minimize the risk of incident with a vehicle or cyclist, and we have all collection trucks equipped with rear view cameras to give our workforce the benefit of minimizing their blind spot when maneuvering their vehicle for collections. Training does not stop when a sanitation worker graduates from the academy. Routinely, department-wide messages on safety practices are distributed to our garages and are required to be read by supervisors and staff to all sanitation workers at the start of shift roll calls. In the lead up to each winter year, DSNY conducts an in-service training for all uniformed staff. The training refreshes the workforce on safety protocols, the operations of all vehicles and equipment, the proper procedures for attaching snowplows and tire chains, and how to use two-way radios. The precautions we take and the trainings we conduct will never mitigate all the hazards. However, our drive to containerize residential waste in the city is truly the next frontier for worker safety. The newly announced waste containerization requirements for residences of 9 or fewer units represent meaningful safety improvements. Number one, sanitation workers will handle less material directly because the waste will be in containers that can be manually tipped into collection trucks. Secondly, the stress and strain of carrying containers to and from the collection truck will be reduced thanks to wheels on containers of official NYC bins. And third, we are assessing the feasibility of giving our workforce the option for mechanized tipping so that they can choose whether to use that aid on their routes. As always, with new equipment, we will review the potential solutions with our partners in Local 831 and thoroughly field test them. The safety improvements are not just abstract ideas. They can be measured against the categories of worker injury that will be less likely as New Yorkers set out their waste in containers in official NYC bins. For example, in fiscal year 23, the department recorded 760 injuries for its uniformed workforce. Of those, more than 40% were due to workers being splashed with an unknown substance while hauling bags and loose material, workers straining to lift and throw material into the truck, and workers suffering lacerations and needle sticks because they handled material directly. These are the kinds of injuries that will become less far likely when our workforce is collecting material set out in wheel containers and given the option to use a mechanized tipping solution. Now I would like to discuss another critical part of the department's efforts to improve worker safety, replacing and enhancing DSNY's fleet. Every day, approximately 1,500 heavy-duty DSNY vehicles are on our city's streets. To properly operate them, sanitation workers receive extensive training in the academy, which emphasizes watching for blind spots while turning, always using a guide person for backing up, using the parking brake, operating the vehicle in poor weather conditions, including, of course, snow, and entering and exiting vehicles using 3 points of contact. These safety practices are reinforced during the starter shift roll calls and through DSNY's annual in-service training. Newer trucks are also safer trucks, and for the past 2 years, we've made great strides in improving the department's fleet. Last year at this time, our fleet's average age for rear loaders was more than 6 years per vehicle. Thanks to significant investments from the Adams administration, our rear loader truck's average age is expected to drop to just over 4 years in fiscal year 24. In addition to the rear loader improvements, the department has replaced almost 30% of its dual bin trucks and 38% of its mechanical brooms. Along with a younger and healthier fleet, the department is systematically upgrading every heavy-duty vehicle's standard safety features. As I mentioned before, all collection trucks and mechanical brooms are equipped with rear-view cameras, which significantly reduces the driver's blind spots. Now, the department is moving forward with a 360 camera as a standard feature of collection trucks and mechanical brooms. The 360 cameras provide vehicle operators with a full picture of the surrounding environment, far beyond the visual field of side view mirrors. Before the Adams administration, these cameras were tested but never actually piloted in our fleet. In partnership with Local 831, the department successfully implemented these cameras on collection trucks and mechanical brooms, and they are now a standard feature for all new truck and mechanical broom purchases. Another standard feature for all new collection trucks is the strobe light safety system. The lighting system is a major step forward in nighttime safety for our workforce, as well as drivers and cyclists on the road. Already, more than 600 collection trucks have this lighting system. To conclude my testimony on the topic, I'd like to address the department's management of worker complaints regarding safety. Sanitation workers are encouraged to raise workplace safety concerns with their supervisors, and supervisors are required to investigate each complaint and document when a condition is found that warrants further investigation or remediation. Complaints can range from the need for electrical repairs to the clearing of clogged drains on garage floors. The department tracks those requests through our internal work request system and actions for any necessary repairs. Lastly, I will now turn to the 3 pieces of legislation on today's agenda. The first is Intro 978, which would require large chain stores to donate non-saleable personal care products. This bill would require the department or another agency as designated by the mayor to set up a web portal to facilitate donations of these products to qualified nonprofit organizations. While the department supports the bill's underlying goal of making personal care products more available to those in need, DSNY is not the appropriate entity to facilitate those donations. The current Donate NYC platform is not scalable for any additions without significant financial investments. Given the current financial climate, it is not an area where we can or should allocate resources at this time. The second is Intro 1131, which would give the Department of Sanitation authority to enforce against unlicensed mobile car washes. The department supports this bill. We are at the intersection of public space, businesses, and communities, and we understand the importance of ensuring our streets and sidewalks are clean. Our enforcement operations prioritize compliance with cleanliness and safety standards, including road and sidewalk accessibility, as well as proper waste disposal. The last is Intro 1161, which would require collegiate and professional sports venues to allow attendees to enter with a reusable beverage container. The department supports this goal of this legislation as we encourage the use of reusable items to reduce overall waste. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. We are now happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, and I believe we're hearing from Bick as well.
Good afternoon, Chair Nurse and members of the City Council Commission on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. I am David Feldman, Deputy Commissioner of Legal Affairs and General Counsel at the New York City Business Integrity Commission, or BIC. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on these important topics related to safety in the trade waste industry. BIC's mission continues to include freeing the industries it regulates from the grip of organized crime and other forms of corruption. BIC currently regulates the trade waste or commercial waste hauling industry and the city's public wholesale food markets, including the Fulton Fish Market, the Hunts Point Produce Market, and several others. In addition to BIC's traditional role of promoting public safety by fighting corruption and ensuring that companies regulated by the agency conduct their affairs with honesty and integrity, BIC has, pursuant to legislation and rulemaking over the past several years, expanded its mission to include other types of safety, including worker safety and traffic safety. Trade waste collection is dangerous and strenuous, and it presents challenges to workers given that heavy-duty collection trucks must share the road with other motor vehicles, cyclists, and pedestrians. Although BIC does not employ or supervise any sanitation workers, BIC works to promote safety through regulation, enforcement, and communication with private companies that haul trade waste in New York City. In that regard, Local Law 198 of 2019 gave BIC the power and authority to establish and enforce traffic safety requirements for trade waste vehicles. As a result, failure to abide by traffic safety laws constitutes a potential ground for denial of a BIC license or registration. The comprehensive background investigations that BIC performs with respect to every applicant for a license or registration include review of driving records and confirmation of adequate workers' compensation insurance. BIC staff may request additional documents or compel sworn testimony if warranted. Finally, BIC can require a company to retain a third-party independent monitor in response to safety concerns or other issues. Following the implementation of Local Law 198 of 2019, BIC promulgated new rules relating to traffic and vehicle safety. These rules require companies to provide annual worker safety training, as well as defensive driving courses for drivers every 3 years. The rules also contain vehicle inspection and reporting requirements and mandate vehicle safety equipment like convex mirrors. BIC issues violations to companies if workers are caught riding on the outside of the truck, an extremely dangerous practice, or if they cannot produce requested daily driver vehicle inspection reports or required reports for 6-month inspections by a qualified mechanic. In addition, Local Law 56 of 2019 requires trade waste companies to provide workers with and conspicuously post specific information related to worker rights and safety. And Local Law 57 of 2019 requires BIC to refer labor-related complaints to appropriate agencies, such as the Department of Labor, codifying the agency's previous practice. Licensees and registrants must also abide by federal hours of service requirements for workers and must obey the requirements set forth in the New York State Vehicle and Traffic Law. BIC's enforcement activity has increased significantly in recent years and months, and much of that increase is attributable to our focus on safe operations. In addition to issuing violations when a BIC licensee or registrant fails to obey the relevant laws and agency rules, BIC also issues violations to companies that attempt to avoid regulation by operating without a license or registration. Since August 2022, more than 70 companies applied to BIC as a result of such enforcement. BIC also issued more than 1,200 safety-related violations to licensees and registrants in fiscal year 2023. BIC ensures compliance through truck stops and garage inspections by an investigations unit that is staffed by peace officers, most of whom were formerly with the NYPD, by working with an NYPD squad embedded within the agency, and by resolving complaints. BIC conducts an average of 260 truck stops per month, with investigators active on the street during staggered day, night, and weekend shifts. Of the violations issued to regulated companies in fiscal year 2023, approximately 60% were safety-related. BIC's presence on the street is well known in the trade waste industry, and it reinforces the message every day that safety must be the #1 priority during trade waste operations. Each year, BIC fields about 350 complaints, with an average time to reach a resolution of about 7 days. Complaints may concern safety as well as service, cleanliness, or other matters under our authority. A BIC investigator is assigned to each complaint. Follow-up may include coordinating between a carter and customer or member of the public, referring the matter to a partner agency, or starting a longer-term investigation. BIC has received complaints from trade waste workers in the past, and we work diligently to investigate each matter. BIC's capacity to carry out our public safety mission is enhanced by our partnerships. BIC has been a member of the Vision Zero Task Force since 2016, and regularly conducts joint street enforcement with the NYPD's Transportation Division and DSNY. We have a strong partnership with the NYPD's Collision Investigation Squad, or CIS, which investigates all fatal traffic collisions in the city. When one of those collisions involves a trade waste truck, CIS notifies BIC immediately, and our investigators go to the scene and follow up with the driver and company owner to ensure that appropriate regulatory action is taken and that BIC stays informed of pending criminal investigations. In addition, one of BIC's investigators recently completed a course focusing on federal regulations and applying them during commercial motor vehicle safety inspections, which will allow BIC to do joint enforcement stops with the New York State Department of Transportation and remove vehicles from service if it is determined that the vehicle is unsafe for operation. Finally, I would like to briefly touch on our efforts regarding outreach and engagement with the trade waste industry. BIC's job as a regulator involves balancing enforcement with engagement. We are committed to effective industry outreach and to working with the industry to ensure compliance and promote public safety. Commissioner Crotty and other members of BIC's team have attended safety meetings at several trade waste companies and have seen firsthand how important it is to prioritize worker safety and public safety during everyday operations. BIC sends regular electronic communications to our licensees and registrants to share information and resources related to safety, and we engage directly with the industry to address concerns and answer questions to help comply with applicable safety rules. For example, following a spike in the issuance of safety violations this past spring, BIC held a hybrid virtual and in-person town hall event in April 2023 to address frequently asked questions. The event was attended by 300 participants. Notably, safety violations have decreased since then, even though our truck stops have continued with the same frequency, suggesting a potential uptick in compliance. We look forward to hosting similar events in the future. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. I am now happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your testimony. We're going to start out with questions about the DSNY labor force, and then we'll have questions about the private sanitation sector. And I wanted to acknowledge Councilmember Yeager. Thanks for being here. So just one, congratulations on a new class of workers. It's really exciting. We'd love to see more boots on the ground. We know the last exams were given in 2022 and 2015. Do you all know when the next, or anticipate when a next academy for a new class of workers will be announced?
Sure. So as of right now, the class of 95 sanitation workers that went in yesterday is the last projected class for this calendar year. As of right now, we don't have an anticipated date for additional classes at this time.
And are you all doing recruitment efforts in high schools or colleges? I know that you've done some stuff out in different communities, but right before this test, which was exciting, I know our office went out and helped. But just how are you doing recruitment to New Yorkers?
Sure, I'll pass that question to Deputy Commissioner Goodman.
Thank you. Yes, ahead of the 2022 sanitation worker exam, we did substantial outreach that did include a heavy focus on high schools, community colleges, private and public institutions of higher learning. The sanitation worker exam comes up on every few years. It's something that will always be a part of that outreach. In the interim, we also do school-based outreach for civilian and other positions.
Great. And how many individuals have taken the civil service exam and are on DSNY's hiring/wait list?
So according to our records, about 50,000 people took the sanitation worker exam in 2022, and about 31,000 people made it onto the list.
Awesome. You mentioned about safety training, so I won't re-ask you about that, but just to clarify that the supervisors are reading out messages on a daily basis. Is there anything else you want to expand on safety trainings beyond the testimony?
Sure. So our annual in-house service training is the opportunity. It was previously our annual snow training. We've then shifted to a different model, which is kind of covering a wider range of aspects of the job. Safety, as I mentioned in my testimony, is paramount to our operation. Again, as I mentioned before, I started off as a sanitation worker, and I did it for 5 years, so I know firsthand the dangers of working behind a truck. So we always take that importance to the workforce to this day. So the annual in-house service training takes all that, driving, working behind a truck, proper lifting, procedures, and of course, pedestrian and bicyclist safety when driving.
And then in terms of gender and racial disparity, we know the current labor force is about 3% identifying as women. How has DSNY or is DSNY encouraging more women to join the workforce? What have been any reported obstacles for more women to join? What efforts, if any, are you all working on for retaining employees that identify as women?
So I'll pass on some of the things to Deputy Commissioner Goodman, but before I move on, our recent stats on uniformed female sanitation workers, or uniformed female workers in the agency are 9%. So it's improved since, I guess, the last data set you had, which I'll be glad to share with you,
Great.
your staff.
Yeah, and I'll just add that it was a substantial focus of our outreach around the civil service exam, really trying to emphasize that this is a job for anyone who wants to serve the city of New York. This is not a job for one kind of New Yorker. This is a job for anybody who cares about their neighborhoods. We really put women front and center in our campaigns around recruitment for the civil service exam last year. Always more to do, but we were happy with the results.
And would you be, at some point, if you don't have it now, will you be able to break that down between, for example, collections or uniformed versus civilian percentages?
Yes, definitely. We can definitely.
Okay. And what is the general average length of time that women employees stay at DSNY?
So I don't have any actual stats, but just anecdotally speaking, my experience that women, especially recently, come on the job. They stay throughout to try to obviously to reach service retirement age. The good thing about this agency, and again, I want to keep bringing up myself as an example, is that there's many promotional opportunities that come up. There's currently, today's the last day of filing for the supervisor exam, which is very appealing for many of the workforce. And then obviously there's another opportunity after that with the general superintendent's exam. So that, I think, the advancement opportunities keeps, not only female sand workers, but all sanitation workers engaged in wanting to stay here as a lifelong career.
And also, I just wanted to note, I think we've brought it up a couple times in our budget hearings that I believe all of the garages now have different gendered bathrooms at this point. Are those all completed?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
They've all been completed, thankfully, so.
That's awesome. Okay, and just quickly on racial disparity, in addition to being a largely majority male force, the bulk of current labor force is identified as white. Can you describe any DEI initiatives that DSNY engages in to foster an inclusive workplace for people of color? And if at all, do you have any information on the length of time folks are staying with DSNY? If you're seeing more people of color move into these leadership or senior executive, senior leadership roles?
So one of the things that Commissioner Tisch has done, and we've done with previous administrations as well, is engage all the affiliated organizations. So, for example, the African American Benevolent Association, the Hispanic Society, to name a few, are organizations that we always, engage and try to get them to have their membership, take the advancement opportunities and take the promotional exams. But as far as any actual stats, I don't have anything right now as far as like the progression over time, but I'd be glad to look at that for you and get you something.
Great, we'll follow up. And then just in terms of moving folks into leadership or supervisory positions, I know you have some things coming up. Does that come with any workshops or things that you all host inside DSNY to prepare people for those exams?
Yeah, so actually one of the things that the commissioner did this time around, as I mentioned before, the supervisor filing, is she made a lot of study materials, it was just general, department materials available to anybody in the workforce, even somebody that didn't have access to a department computer. So we were able to get them all the materials so they can study, have that ahead of time. We did that well in advance of the actual filing date. And then again, we encourage and promote any kind of study sessions that the affiliated organizations have. But yeah, so those are some of the things, to name a few.
Okay, I just want to talk quickly about the vacancy rate. As of August 2023, DSNY civilian positions held a 7.1% vacancy rate. What programs or services, if any, have been delayed as a result of this vacancy rate?
So thankfully, no programs or services have been delayed as a result of the vacancy rate, and we've onboarded 34 civilian positions since then.
Okay, and my understanding is that you all have hired 280 positions beyond what you're budgeted for. Can you describe the reasons for that?
Sure. So because of a lot of the, the preparation for the snow season, OMB allows us to front load our hiring to account for the attrition as well. So the projected attrition fluctuates from year to year. So the 280 is accounting for the attrition that we're gonna, experience throughout the fiscal year.
Okay, great. And then how will the PEGs proposed by the mayor, the letter that went out, how is that anticipated to impact DSNY's workforce, if there are specific positions, programs, or operations that will be impacted?
So right now, we're still in very early conversations with OMB, so right now they really don't have anything to speak on at this point.
Okay. And then lastly, retirement. What percentage of DSNY staff remain employed at the agency after they become eligible for retirement with pension?
Okay, so presently, approximately 7% of uniform staff have more than 20 years of service, which is retirement eligible. And civilian staff have several different service age targets for pension eligibility, so it's a little bit difficult to project that number.
Okay, so 7% currently are beyond
20 years.
Right, okay. And then do you all I know we passed legislation, I think, requiring all city agencies do exit interviews, but is this something you all were doing previously?
Yeah, it's one of the things we've always done historically. recently, we started thinking about doing more of an electronic form, but we've always done a paper exit interview form. All the uniformed retirees or separations are done at our personnel management division at headquarters, and all the sanitation workers are required to fill out an exit interview form when they file for retirement.
Okay, and are there top reported reasons given for employees leaving before they hit that retirement eligibility?
We've come across various reasons, but nothing unique to DSNY. Obviously, some of it's salary related, but really nothing that stands out that's different from other uniform agencies.
Is there a top reason?
No, not really. Pretty much the same as other agencies, yeah.
Okay, so just not enough salary is an issue?
Yeah, not enough salary
Okay,
is an issue.
there's no other reason?
I'd have to get more of the data, but right now I really don't have anything.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to pause here, open up for some questions from members in case they have a bunch of things they're scheduled for, and then come back to discuss DSNY occupational accidents. I believe we have Salamanca, Councilmember Salamanca.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. Thank you for attending today's hearing. I want to start by really thanking your agency for the relationship that my office and your office has, and it's shown in my community, especially the addressing the illegal dumping. I have two IBZs, industrial business zones, that are prone for illegal dumping. I know my colleague has the same issue as well, and being able to work with your office, allocate funding to put these cameras and capture these individuals who choose to dump their garbage and destroy our communities, and really holding them accountable, it has played a major impact in my community, so thank you for that. I want to thank you also for your support for Intro 1131, which will address or give you the authority to enforce these illegal car washes. Should this law, and when this law gets passed, how do you envision enforcing these illegal car washes?
I'm going to pass that on to Deputy Commissioner Marola for this.
Sorry. Thank you, Councilmember. We're working through those details now, but generally the way the law is written, the department itself, as the department, would have the authority, which means that we'd be looking to assess whether it would be enforcement, supervisors, or a combination thereof. I do know that, as you know, we've gone through every neighborhood with our supervisors looking at cleanliness issues, our enforcement teams looking at cleanliness issues, our sand police looking at illegal dumping. So we have the right types of people ready to go on this. What I would also add is that because there might be a nature of confiscations here, this is part of concurrent authority of DCWP that we could do that they couldn't because we have sand police, we'd be able to affect that. So the details, we'll talk to you more about it as we look at it, but it gives us broadly a way of doing it throughout the whole agency.
Currently, this bill, one of these bills came about, the amount of car washes that are popping up in my communities. Some of my colleagues in the Bronx have this issue is bigger in their district than it is in mine. So it came about because we realized when there's alternate side parking and your truck, what's it called?
Mechanical broom.
Your mechanical broom. There we go. Your broom is coming down the block. These vans are not moving, and therefore our streets are remaining as is, dirty. What are you currently doing now for when these vans are not moving for alternate side parking and have no tags, because many of them do not have licenses or registrations?
Whenever we encounter vehicles that are preventing our brooms from getting on the streets, we have, of course, the ability to ticket them. If we see no license plates, this is also where we partner with the local precinct and report if it's something that's not an abandoned vehicle, it's actually an occupied vehicle and we can't move it. But we are constantly trying to monitor the streets for our brooms' ability to navigate them. We understand that this has created a particular issue in your community and others. A lot of our Bronx garages watch for this and make sure that they know those streets that they might not be able to get brooms down and pay close attention to them.
Yeah. Having mobile car washes is permissible in the city of New York if you legally have a license through the Department of Consumer Affairs. How would you envision working with the Department of Consumer Affairs should this bill be passed?
I've spoken with our colleagues at the Department of Consumer Affairs Worker Protection now, and they very much so appreciate that there is an open process for folks to get licenses. This is not a capped process. This is something that they just don't get the number of applicants to for the amount of car washes that are seen in the street. They're thinking through that as well. DCWP is excited to have a partner in trying to make sure that unlicensed car washes have more meaningful enforcement and that it might bring more people into the fold.
I know that back in 2020, the Department of Consumer Affairs, they undertook a public campaign to ensure that mobile car wash vendors were licensed, basically educating them. Should this bill be passed, how can you work with the Department of Consumer Affairs prior to going out and enforcing and picking up these vans, on educating them on the pros and cons of getting licensed and giving them the ranges of the licenses, which I see here they're between $137 to $550, depending on the size and the time frame of their license?
That is a question I'm going to come back to you on after I've had more conversations with my partners there. They understand there is a need for that type of education that you're describing, so people know what the licensing fee is, but also what the requirements are based on a licensing fee. I'll come back to you with that, sir.
All right. With that, I want to thank you again for your support, and I thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to introduce this bill and have a hearing.
Thank you, Councilmember Salamanca. I just want to acknowledge Councilmember Gennaro. I'm going to pass it to another member, but since we were on the topic, I had just a couple questions related to Intro 1131. And forgive me if you've already said it. Does the department currently have the necessary infrastructure to store vehicles or equipment seized if this bill is enacted into law?
The department has the necessary infrastructure to store vehicles and equipment seized. We would, of course, see what those numbers get to because it's not unlimited space. But we also don't envision necessarily this being a confiscation-heavy operation yet. We need to get on the ground and see what it's like after we start talking to a number of the folks who are unlicensed and seeing how violations being issued, changes or affects the streetscape.
Mm-hmm. And is the department sufficiently staffed to undertake the enforcement required for these additional duties?
We are assessing that now with our partners at OMB.
And so I have a question about a little bit more about how this would work. So when, somebody calls the district or tweets at us or whatever, we call the garage or a community affairs person, hey, we got this going on over there. And it's pretty, if they can, they'll go try to deal with it. Sometimes if they've gotten extra money from the council member, they have more flexibility, they can send people to do it. Is this going to be the same process? And, in terms of which type of worker will respond? Because a lot of times this is a situation where a car wash is in front of someone's driveway, or it's on a random street, and there's a whole line of people lined up to get their car washed in a random area. So how would that work? How would council members interact with that? Because it's not the way the street vending has been. That was a recent addition to your portfolio. Is it's not clear if we could just call the garage, or if we could just call our district supervisor, who exactly is dealing with that at the district level, or if we have to engage directly at a higher up level, which might not be the best use of your time. So how will this be operationalized in a way that kind of fits into how we normally engage with these types of calls and requests?
Chair, my answer to that will be, I have to come back to you with details. And the reason being is that we are given a lot of flexibility under the laws that's proposed right now for our supervisors and our enforcement agents and our police, it seems to be able to do violation issuing and inspections, which is very helpful in that. So I don't want to say how the operation would work yet in theory or in practice, but I would say that all of our garages are always talking to the boroughs and talking to enforcement, and we make sure that when issues are brought to us, it is circulated within the agency to the right place, which is why I need to work out those details so the right place is apparent, and that type of communication structure will flow the same way.
Mm-hmm. And then just because a lot of this stuff happens out of traditional business hours, we're talking late nights, weekends, Sundays. Are you all going to have a staffing plan to be able to go out and respond to these things quickly?
The same way we do with enforcement today and supervisors generally across the city, we will have a staffing plan to understand what to do and at what hours.
Okay, great. And last question around this is, what role would DEP play at all? Because I know some of this is related to hydrants and water and contaminants, the wrong types of chemicals potentially going down the drains. I don't really know, but I just imagine DEP might have some insight on some of the more environmental issues that are being produced because of these operations.
We routinely work with DEP now on a number of issues like catch basins. We would be in contact with them as we see anything that requires their attention. Fire hydrant usage, of course, both yourself and Councilmember Salamanca mentioned it. We've seen it on the streets, is one of the big problems that we note with these. We're going to have to talk to them. We're going to have to talk to fire too. So we're going to have communications on this. And as we see more dangerous situations, I imagine if this comes to pass, we'll probably want to put out outreach and education on what those chemicals can do if they're being used and what the problems are for the environment.
Yeah, and just my only other question, I mean, given the state of our sidewalks and our streets, there's constantly, I mean, I feel crazy going down the street, as I'm sure most people do, because there's just so much trash everywhere. I mean, it's just a massive operation that's required. Is taking on these additional portfolios, moving resources away from the main mission at hand, which is ensuring these trash cans are clean, the sidewalks are clean, the dump outs are dealt with, that we don't have people sending us stuff all the time, that you all have enough workers in the garage to go out and respond instead of all of these other things now that are coming under the portfolio?
I would say that what is in the portfolio as it is, what could come into the portfolio, so far has a nexus to, as you said, keeping our streets clean. And while that is a large job, admittedly so, it is something that we try and take very seriously across all functions of the agency, because we know keeping our streets clean from dumping, keeping our streets clean from abandoned vehicles, potentially now with car washes, that will have a cascading impact if done right with enforcement, and it will make our neighborhoods cleaner. It'll improve quality of life. We think that is related to our core mission.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it to Councilmember Velasquez.
Thank you. So I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, I want to thank you for the work you're doing with the garages for both stations 10 and 11. We know that they have been in chronic disrepair for ages, and we're looking forward to that, a significant investment in the new building. And I also want to give credit where credit's due with the workers there and how they were able, to the point where we're having more women join the force, really fix the restrooms for that facility. So let's give them a credit and thank the workforce there. That being said, how has the department involved the union in the design, pilot programs, and use of new technologies such as new bins, cans, and truck outfits, which are intended to be used by the workforce?
Sure. So we always involve the union, when it comes to any kind of new equipment or technology that's going to involve sanitation workers using it. They have an equipment committee that's comprised of six sanitation workers chosen by the union themselves. Anytime we introduce something, we speak to the union. They ask us to convene the committee, and we gladly do so. They're released for the day. Depending on where, most of the time it occurs there in our central repair shop in Woodside, Queens. And we go over the equipment, and then they provide feedback or any comments on it. Most of the time, we always make, adjustments to anything or any feedback that they have. Obviously, if it's possible, if it's not restricted through any kind of engineering constraints or anything like that. So that's usually how we deal with it.
Thank you. And I also have an additional question. What steps has the department taken to ensure that the new technologies and tools account for worker safety?
So that's one of the things that, we definitely take very seriously. As I mentioned in my testimony, the backup cameras in all our, collection trucks and mechanical brooms, and the addition of the 360 cameras which give a bird's eye view of the surrounding of the truck, which is really helpful for all the workers, especially when, there are times where, your partner is not always visible, or if you're, driving, on a relay to offload a truck somewhere and you're by yourself. So, those are some, and we're always looking and working with DCAS on new technologies that we can, implement in all our vehicles.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Farias.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question. Last hearing, the commissioner said there was an error with the number of contracts. Sanitation said they could award to carters. Do we have any updates on that? Will less carters be selected for the commercial waste zone program?
Councilmember, thank you for that question. The commissioner testified that the vendor that was doing part of the scoring algorithm, Arcadis, had made an error in its calculations, which was caught, reviewed, and any carter that was impacted that could have been a potential awardee had a conversation with us, and we've corrected that since. In terms of less or more, this is still an ongoing procurement, so I can't talk right now about any number of awards that may be finalized soon and what that number would be. But we did get in contact with those that were impacted, and we had worked through that with them.
Okay, so is it assumed for us to believe that the folks that were notified that they would be receiving a contract or that they were on a waiting list are actually have been contacted and will be given a contract?
We were in touch in early summer with a number of the applicants to let them know whether we would be speaking to them about potential awards. We're still in the stage of having those conversations. Okay. We're getting close to finalizing them, don't get me wrong, but those conversations are still ongoing. And I think that's, not trying to be, I apologize, I think that's the water's edge of where I am in terms of what I can say about what's going on with potential awardees.
Sure, so I can follow up offline. No problem, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
And Councilmember Bottcher.
Good afternoon. I want to ask about the building superintendents who've reached out to us, they've reached out to you. These are not building supers that are represented by 32BJ. They're ununionized. They tend to represent smaller buildings. And they've been reaching out to us about the impact of the change in set-out times for residential trash. Used to be no earlier than 4 o'clock. Now it's no earlier than 8 p.m., 6 p.m. if it's containerized. What we've been hearing from them is that, supers used to work from early morning until late afternoon. Now they often have to work from early morning until after 9 o'clock at night because they have to wait to set it out at 8 o'clock. We met with them, Chair Nurse and I. They shared with us about the impact that this is having on their lives. They can't have dinner with their families. They can't have any kind of life, in addition to the physical toll that it's been taking. I think the 8 p.m. set-out time was generally a great idea and a positive impact, but this group of supers, they haven't had traction getting the attention of DSNY. They've requested a meeting with the commissioner. We put forward that request. Will the department commit to sitting down with these supers? They started their own group called NYC Supers. Will the commissioner sit with them and talk through their concerns and think about how this could be, what solutions there might be to address it?
Thanks, Councilmember. I can speak to that. I can say that at this point, multiple members of this panel have been in direct correspondence or conversation with the group you're referring to. So I've spoken to Mr. Romeo directly. I know members of Deputy Commissioner Marola's team have corresponded as well with the NYC Building Supers. The feedback has been heard substantially. I'll also say that these changes, as you know, were not made capriciously. They were done after substantial research that showed us that the 4 p.m. set-out time was by far the earliest of any major city in the country. I mean, you talk about what used to happen. What used to happen was that bags of trash sat on the curb all afternoon, and that was unacceptable. So we appreciate that feedback. We've heard that feedback. I also can just, if I can add a plug, many of the questions that have been posed publicly about what might happen in the future by the group that you're referring to are actually answered in our containerization report at nyc.gov/future of trash. I would encourage everyone to read it because I received correspondence from them that says, well, what are you going to do about this or that? And the answers are there at nyc.gov/future of trash. Happy to continue corresponding with them. Thank you.
What they've been told essentially is you can put it out at 6, you've just got to containerize it. The issue with that for many buildings, including Mr. Romeo, who's a super in Chelsea, a few blocks away from me, is that they'd have to put out over 20 containers to fit everything. They can't store all those containers. What this group has asked is that you consider letting the cardboard be put out without containers.
So two pieces of response to that. There's actually already an option for large buildings like Mr. Romeo's for an early morning time. Every January, any building with 9 or more units is able to opt in to set out the trash between 4 and 7 a.m. And that was something we worked out with 32BJ. That was a feedback that we received early on in this process and we were happy to incorporate based on that expert perspective. So that's an option that's there, right, the early morning time. On the cardboard does not need to go in a container. If the refuse is containerized and goes out at 6 p.m., the cardboard can go right alongside it at 6 p.m. That's already in the rules. So this is again why I mentioned that many of these pieces of feedback have been heard and answered. 20 containers may be appropriate for the refuse. I'm not sure if that number includes cardboard. The cardboard does not need to be containerized alongside the trash.
And plastic and glass?
I believe it does need to be containerized. But let me double check on that. I know the cardboard was a piece of feedback we heard during the rulemaking process.
Have you communicated that to Mr. Romeo?
It's in the published rule. I'm not sure whether we communicated that one directly.
Can we meet and talk this through? I think you've had conversations in passing on the phone. It hasn't been working. I think we need to sit down and talk all this through. Can we?
Let's be in touch about it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Botcher. I agree. I think there's nothing, it's always great to sit down and talk with people, even if you've emailed or spoken on the phone. Sometimes it's just a better touch. Folks feel heard, and obviously that's why it's so great to have a unionized workforce, and I really wish that they were a part of it, because I think some of those issues are related to that sector, and some of the pressures that they're feeling that potentially they wouldn't feel if they were a part of a union. Small plug. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my line of questioning. If council members think of something you wanna ask, just let me know. So I wanna talk about the DSNY workers, occupational accidents and injuries, or injuries to pedestrians, and that just briefly, and then we'll move into the private sector. So how many fatalities, work-related fatalities, did DSNY have in calendar year 2022?
So in calendar year 2022, we did not have any fatalities, but I do want to state that in current calendar year 23, we haven't had any directly related, fatalities of any workers while in performance of their duties, but there were, fatalities of 13 sanitation workers who were active but not in the course of their duties. So I just want to, unfortunately, we've had a few freak incidents, and they weren't actually performing their duties, but they were active members. So I just
outside of work.
Some of them were actually working. It just wasn't in the performance of their duties. Okay. Like during a break, could have been different situations.
So not related to equipment or collections.
Correct.
Or anything like that. Got it. Sorry for that. And then just when something like that happens, can you just briefly go over the process, procedures, steps that happen for the record?
Sure. So immediately, through channels, headquarters is notified. All the exec staff and the unions are notified. Obviously, if the family members, are not informed, that we reach out to them. If it's like something that requires external authorities, we always work with, NYPD or FDNY or any external entity on that. And then internally, we always provide support through our employee assistance unit. So usually we send counselors to, the work location for any kind of support they need. And we always work closely with, the unions and the workforce on anything that they need, related to that.
And then for injuries, how many injuries were occurred, work-related, in 2022 and or 2023?
So we, part of our MMR reporting is the line of duty injuries. So for fiscal year 23, there were 760 work-related injuries.
And can you describe the circumstances under which these injuries occurred?
Sure. So obviously, varied greatly, but the majority of them were due to sprains and strains, cuts, punctures, and then crushing and bruising, and fractures.
Mostly during collections?
Yes, mostly during collections. Yes.
All right. And then injuries to civilians and pedestrians. What processes are initiated when DSNY is involved in the fatality or injury of a pedestrian or other civilian? And are there any common scenarios in which a pedestrian is injured?
So immediately, NYPD is notified, and then we always follow their lead on that. We always do a post-accident performance evaluation, which entails drug and alcohol testing, and then the employee is not eligible to drive until the results of those tests come back as cleared. In some cases, they may be required to do physical fitness testing at our healthcare facility located on Beaver Street, and then they look for clearance as well.
And are the majority of incidents in collections, or are there any post-collections injuries that you all report?
So it varies. The majority of them are during collections. There are a lot of them that happen during our employees relaying trucks to offload at the disposal facilities. So it ranges, but the majority of them are during household collection operations.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to pause. Did you want to ask your question?
Sure.
I come back. Just let me know.
No, yeah.
I saw you on the list.
Thank you, Chair Nurse, and excuse me if I am repeating a question. There was a hearing next door. But on monetary relief and aid for sanitation workers, does that exist when sanitation workers and their families are in an event of an injury or death on the job? Or do they receive compensation for an accident if that were to happen?
So I believe that they're entitled to some, depending on who the beneficiary is, they're entitled to whatever they contributed to their pension. Mm-hmm. If the employee, is able to retire and then passes away, then if they elect to, leave that benefit to somebody, then that would be passed on to them. But that's to the extent of what's provided to them.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going to bring up Councilmember Farias again.
Sorry, I'm back, y'all. Just a couple of quick questions after I'm reviewing the testimony from DSNY on intro 978. Can I get a better idea of the team that DSNY has at Donate NYC? How many team members, if you folks were impacted or that division was impacted by PEGs?
Councilmember, I'm happy to answer at the start and also turn it over to my colleague, Director of Recycling and Sustainability, Kate Kitchener. So Donate NYC is a small team, and while PEGs isn't necessarily the thing to think about for it in terms of impact, when it was founded many years ago, it had a very specific purpose for facilitating some general goods donations, and at one point in time only received extra funding for food donations. Over 6, 7 years, that hasn't led to more than about 5,000 users of the site, and not too much in terms of tonnage too. It's a very small operation in that.
Okay.
And so in what you read in the testimony, what the first step testified before is, we know that if we're going to actually try and expand this, which it hasn't been done in years, we would actually need to invest resources in doing that, both personnel and non-personnel. So that is the thrust of our concern here on this one, and it wouldn't
Sure.
make it a good fit for us.
Okay, so you don't view 978 as in direct correlation with what Donate NYC is already doing? Because I took a scan of the website just quickly because I thought maybe, we're not looking at it directly. And there is a section for like personal hygiene products.
Forgive me when I say the thing, if Donate NYC had been more robust, yes, I would say add to it. But it hasn't been, and our concern is that we would not be able to scale it to add to it to do more. Because that would be, chain stores are a large portion of, in this case, businesses that would have products to donate. We haven't done that type of addition in a while.
Okay. Do you folks have any recommendation of what agency would be appropriate to do this work, if not DSNY and Donate NYC?
Not at this time. Okay. No, not at this time.
Okay. I think the difficulty that I have is our goal is to like reduce, reuse, recycle. We're trying to make sure products do not end up in our landfills. We're trying to make sure, at least from what I see on the Donate NYC webpage, there are businesses, there are churches, there are nonprofit organizations that are requesting some of these items that are within this bill. And so if we're not pushing to expand or to rethink something that is outdated and address the need that we're seeing here in our city, then what are we really doing? I would really like to continue talking about this specifically with the chair, with Chair Stevens and Chair Nurse on this bill, on how we can look at what budgetarily might be a factor going into FY25, because we cannot keep filling our landfills. I know all of us in this room agree with that, and there's plenty of product out there, especially where we're seeing increases in migrants in our community that can be put to better use than to be going to the garbage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And yeah, it would be great to get an understanding of what significant resources required means, because it's hard to know if that just means we don't want to do it versus this is the actual cost of what it would be. And I know in the Zero Waste Act that we passed, we did have some, we did have the bill to like mandate, let's get to zero waste, which would require us building some of that stuff out. And maybe the state will actually pull off the EPR this year and we can get some reduction in packaging so we don't have this kind of issue. But I mean, that's a gamble. So I mean, I agree. I really support this bill, and I really hope we can find a way to identify what the actual barriers would be and try to work with you all to figure that out, so that we can really get this, it's mostly just plastic, from going into the landfills, and also to really support people who need it. Okay, I'm going to, I only have a few more questions. It's related to the private sanitation sector, and then we're gonna open it up for testimony. I do have a question about the safety task force. The Commercial Waste Zones Safety Task Force was created by Local Law 199 and is supposed to meet regularly to make recommendations for the effective implementation of safety measures related to commercial waste collection. The Safety Task Force is chaired by the Commissioner and includes the chair of BIC, as well as other appointed industry and policy experts. The last times the committee met was December 1st, 2021 and March 29th, 2022. Do you have plans to meet in 2023?
I'm going to get back to you on that and when the timetable is for that committee's actions. I apologize, Chair, I don't have that with me. Okay. But part of what that committee is doing is, of course, seeing what the local law is already requiring of the carters as they move into the commercial waste zone program, which is that workers be comprehensively trained, workers have that training on them in a card so we can audit it, and that they provide that to sanitation so that we can audit companies and make sure that the right training is being given. So the purpose appreciated and the importance of it, of course, appreciated. I do need to get back to you on that.
Okay. Is there just a reason why it hasn't been held this year at all?
At that, I don't, but as you know, most of our year has been spent actually trying to stand up the program now that we're in the applicant and the award stage.
Okay, great. And then local law 199 requires that selected carters are responsible for ensuring that all workers, including but not limited to vehicle operators, laborers, helpers, mechanics, supervisors, and managers have received worker safety training. How is DSNY and BIC ensuring that private carters are conducting proper work safety training?
Starting with the BIC side, our regulation in that area is in two parts, I'd say. One is worker training and worker safety, and the other is vehicle safety and traffic safety. BIC's rule regarding annual worker training requires educating workers on workplace safety requirements, operational instruction on each specific type of equipment used by the employee, training to address specific public safety hazards associated with transporting trade waste, and collision avoidance, basic defensive driving type training. Companies also must post worker safety information that is accessible to employees. BIC has conducted more than 100 garage inspections in the last 12 months to make sure that among other requirements, is being met. And then finally, BIC also requires drivers to conduct both pre-trip and post-trip vehicle and equipment inspections. So drivers must fill out, we call it a DVIR, vehicle inspection form at the end of the shift and review the previous one at the beginning of the new shift. And that is something that our investigations unit makes sure is being done and that the appropriate forms are being kept in the vehicles of private companies.
And then for 2022, there were 171 injuries reported to OSHA related to private carting. Does the city impose any requirements on private waste carters to provide preventative safety equipment? We had some labor unions here today highlight that some carters are just not providing adequate PPE, including work boots, safety vests, gloves, protective eyewear. How are you all, you mentioned you're doing garage inspections. Are you going to garages to chat with workers? Are you going outside of garages? Do you have folks just out at night sometimes? How are you all ensuring that workers have the equipment they need?
So we do have those touch points that you mentioned with BIC's street enforcement. I would also mention that BIC tracks all complaints that we receive through a variety of methods. We have a phone hotline, 212-437-0600, and our website is also available. We also get referrals from agency partners. I was gratified to hear the testimony earlier from the gentleman from Local 108 about having had a successful complaint to BIC even before we had that safety authority in 2018. And one of the major items that came out of that, of course, was the authority to do something about the kind of issues you're talking about. And we continue to focus on that and encourage workers to reach out to BIC through any of those methods.
And for the record, are private carters required to share employee complaint data with BIC?
They do not have to do it in real time. However, private carters are required to respond to BIC information requests. And so if BIC were to receive a complaint in that area or to otherwise be investigating it, we would issue an information request to the relevant carter, and they would absolutely be required to respond to that.
And for when we do move over to the CWZ, would that be something, and forgive me if I don't know, there's so much I'm like trying to hold it all in my brain, but will these awardees be required to share complaint data when we move into this with the city?
I'll come back to you with the exact requirements on their data sharing for complaint data, but you know very well that the local law absolutely protects any worker that wants to make a complaint known to sanitation. And that sanitation is authorized to investigate it fully to see what's happened and whether or not the carter has to be held responsible for violations.
Okay, we've talked about cash wages a bit. Who will be responsible for oversight of these types of labor issues with the rollout of CWZ, just for the record?
I believe that moves fully to sanitation, but I'm looking to my colleague at BIC to confirm that.
That would definitely be in sanitation's purview, but there is co-enforcement authority, and we would look forward to working with the department collaboratively on that. I'd also mention that as commercial waste zones are rolled out zone by zone, carters are potentially subject to two different requirements. The same carter might be functioning in a zone that's been awarded and implemented, as well as elsewhere in the city where one hasn't been, and they would be fully required to comply with BIC rules.
Right, but they'd all be, but cash wages would not be a part of the CWZ, regardless of which zone anybody's in.
Correct.
Correct. How many cases of cash wages have been reported to BIC over the past few years, if any?
I cannot give information on ongoing investigations. I can tell you that that issue is something that BIC would be very interested in hearing about from anyone that has information about it, and that BIC does work with other agencies, including the Department of Labor, on issues such as cash wages.
You don't, is there a ballpark number of cash wages cases that you all are dealing with, whether they're in process or not?
I'd have to
complaints. Okay.
I'd have to
put it in the follow-up.
Specifics on that.
Okay. What, if any, threshold is necessary for BIC to initiate a labor or safety-related audit into a private waste carter?
So BIC has an audit team that reviews financial information that carters are required to provide. If there is a concern about financial data, customer service data, safety issues, that is something that the audit unit, the investigations unit, and potentially the enforcement unit can address at BIC through all of the means that I've described. There's not a particular minimum threshold.
Okay. For garage inspections, what types of conditions or events would prompt BIC to inspect the garage of a private carter? Beyond a complaint, do you do proactive inspections? Is there typically cooperation? How many times have you all had to obtain a judicial warrant to perform such operations, if at all, in the past couple of years?
We do extensive garage inspections. Typically, the carter will cooperate and a warrant is not necessary. The garage inspections can relate to safety and equipment issues, such as making sure that vehicles comply with emission standards, side guard safety requirements, and other issues such as the workers' rights poster, convex mirrors, all of which are required under BIC's rules.
Okay, and just for the record, you do proactive inspections, not
Absolutely.
just complaint. Okay.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. We, however an issue is identified, complaint or otherwise, we do inspections and investigation of those issues.
Okay, the Transform Don't Trash Coalition has conducted initial research looking specifically at Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration data for the largest 20 companies in New York City. It shows that private carters have been involved in significantly more incidents over the past 2 years than in their most recent report. In the past 2 years or so, the largest 20 companies were involved in 115 crashes that caused 136 injuries, compared to the 85 crashes that caused a total of 90 injuries reported previously. This represents a 35% increase in crashes and a 51% increase in injuries. The number of fatalities has increased from 2 to 3. How is DSNY and BIC addressing street safety concerns in the private sanitation sector?
Well, I think that in looking at data like that, it's helpful to distinguish between the period before BIC had authority to address safety and traffic safety and the period since then. So once local law 198 of 2019 was implemented and once BIC promulgated rules pursuant to that, safety has been a major focus, if not the major focus of BIC enforcement. I think 60% of our violations are safety related, and that is the means through which BIC is trying to address those issues. As we go forward, I think that implementing that law was a very significant achievement, and that has only increased during the Adams administration and during the time that BIC's current commissioner has been responsible for those issues.
And how often are you reviewing this type of data?
We review that kind of data on an ongoing basis. We have data analysts at BIC and policy analysts that review that data as part of their regular job.
Is that like a quarterly, an annual, twice a year? Is there any kind of like benchmark, or is it just ongoing when it's flagged?
For which type of data?
For crash data. For carders.
That's an ongoing project.
Okay. We have heard from labor unions that they're getting, some of these carders are getting idling tickets, even if their truck is certified clean idle, for whatever people value clean idle as. Some are saying they're not learning about the tickets till later, and then they're kind of being hit with increasing fines. Can you just describe, I mean, that was like the first time I had heard of the clean idle trucks. Can you just describe those at all, and are you notified of these tickets? Are these trucks exempt from the clean idling law?
I have to refer questions on that to the appropriate agency. I believe it's the Department of Environmental Protection. BIC does not issue idling violations for trade waste vehicles. We do have some limited activity on that area in the public wholesale markets.
Civilian, kind of like citizen complaints.
Right, there's the citizen complaints, but that, again, is not a BIC process. I believe it's DEP through oath, but BIC is
And
not.
they don't, but you never get notified of these types of tickets, or you don't receive any data of that at any point of the year related to carders?
Right, we don't issue the tickets, we don't get that data. We've heard the same issue that you've heard about, but that's not a BIC issue.
I think, I'm sorry, I have 2 more questions. In June 2023, the city reported it had reached a tentative contract with labor unions representing over 300,000 unionized staff, including sanitation workers. Can you please describe any changes affecting DSNY's sanitation workers that will take place as a result of this?
Sure, so I'll take that. So that deal did not include the local 831 sanitation workers. That only included Local 444, which covered the supervisors, superintendents, and the Uniform Chiefs Association. We are currently in very close discussions with Local 831 and OLR, of course, on finalizing that agreement.
When BIC was first established, one of its major objectives was to break up ties between city agencies, including DSNY, and local organized crime entities. In the last decade, to what extent does BIC engage in anti-organized crime investigation and enforcement? Can you describe any current types of issues? And are there any unions or carders that have prior organized crime convictions, associations, who are now potentially awardees within the CWZ?
Well, I can tell you that connections to organized crime and other issues along those lines all fall within the bread and butter of what BIC does, which is to determine whether private trade waste companies have good character, honesty, and integrity. That is going to be something that BIC continues during the commercial waste zone period. Each carter must be licensed by BIC and have that determination made. So as part of the process of obtaining a license from BIC, companies must complete an application that gets into exactly those kinds of issues where the application or other information that BIC has raises a concern. We can request information, we can take sworn testimony, and if warranted, we can deny a license, we can condition a license based on a monitor or take other action, and that's going to be something that continues with CWC.
But so, just to confirm, if someone has in the past been positively identified with that, with organized crime, does that rule them out from participating in this new award process?
I can't comment on specific companies or hard and fast rules. I can't.
Just as a general rule, if I'm Carter X, I've had issues in the past, I've been investigated, I've had a positive outcome of that investigation that, yes, I was doing that, I'm now applying through the CWZ process. Is there any possibility that I get through that process?
If your issue along those lines was significant enough for BIC to deny your application, no, you would not be able to get through the process because a BIC license is one of the requirements to participate.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions. I appreciate you all coming. Thanks for being well prepared as much as you could be. And we look forward to continuing this conversation related to sanitation workers. I'm going to kick it over to Committee Counsel. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. We will begin with public in-person testimony. We'll be starting first with Mr. Robert Bishop, Mr. Eric Goldstein, and Ms. Lacey Tauber. You may approach the tables. Mr. Bishop, you may start whenever you're ready. Please limit your testimony to 2 minutes, please.
Is that it? Yeah. Thank you very much. In consideration that you're limiting me to 2 minutes, I'd like to send Harry Naspoli's greetings to all of you. I'm testifying on behalf of Local 831. And I will skip to the last page of the testimony. You have my testimony submitted. And I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the fallen members of the Department of Sanitation, starting with Mike Hanley in 1996, Frank Consalvo, killed by a hit-and-run driver, 2000, Al Timmons, massive heart attack while on duty in 2000, Mike Gennardo, fatally shot by an intruder inside of the garage, Keith Bridges, injuries during a motor vehicle accident. Vincent Guglielmino, heart attack, 2004. Eva Barrientos, crushed by an Easy Pack collection truck arm. She was 41 years old, mother of 3. Rodney Page, killed in an accident on the Jersey Turnpike while going to the dumps. Michael Ochino, killed in an accident on the BQE. Alan Gormley, heart attack while on collection duty. Rafael Concepcion succumbed to injuries sustained in an accident while on collection duty. Stephen Dixon, heart attack, collection duty, 2009. Richard Timmons, massive heart attack on duty, 46 years old. Frank Justich, Astoria, 2010, killed when a tractor trailer sideswiped him into his sanitation truck and twisted him. Steve Frosch, who was struck by a street sweeper into the garage, another young hero who's left widow and children. We lost at least 9 sanitation employees to COVID-19. Ray Copeland was our first, Kevin Williams, Ali, Ricky Doughton, Michael Gerasi. Is it okay if I finish the list? Francisco Nunez, Kiwi Pigot, Iqbal Sheikh, Paul Santoro. Our members work in the streets, regardless of pandemic, regardless of weather. We don't work from home. One final insult to this department and the members is that based on the Tier 6 pensions, we were added 5 years to the length of service to get a full pension, and we had the insult of a Social Security offset. We've tried to negotiate changes to both since 2012. Now that we have a different governor and a different mayor, we're very hopeful. I want to thank the department for their testimony. We cooperate with the department on safety issues. Our track record is good. We're here to service the people of the city of New York, and I think we do a pretty good job. The rest of my testimony is on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, and you all do an excellent job. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Eric Goldstein, Natural Resources Defense Council. Thank you, Councilmember Nurse and Farris, for being here today and for this hearing. I'll summarize my written testimony. There are a lot of exciting things happening on the waste front, and we agree with the first Deputy Commissioner that New York is in the midst of a trash revolution, thanks largely to this committee, the council, and the administration. And it's a peaceful revolution. Regarding oversight of sanitation workers' safety and protection, let me say that we are anxious about the implementation of the commercial waste zone law. This was one of the 2 most important pieces of solid waste legislation enacted by the council in the past 30 years, but it'll only be successful if implemented in a way that takes into account not only the price, but also the environmental, clean air, public safety, labor rights, and worker safety considerations that the council explicitly required when it passed that landmark legislation in 2019. So we hope and expect the administration will take all of these criteria into account when awarding waste zone contracts. We're pleased to testify today in support of 2 excellent legislative proposals and 1 very sensible proposed council resolution. Waste prevention is the top of the New York State solid waste management hierarchy. It's above reuse, recycling, landfilling, and incineration. To its credit, the council has advanced a number of important waste prevention objectives, legislative objectives in recent years, but there's certainly more that can be done. Intro 1161 takes the challenge of reducing wastes at stadiums and arenas throughout the city. Specifically, the bill provides professional and collegiate sports venues cannot prohibit stadium and arena attendees from bringing in empty reusable containers. We believe this could eliminate the disposal and consumption of hundreds of thousands of plastic water bottles at New York City stadiums and arenas every year, while saving fans money that they don't have to spend on expensive bottled water. This is a pennant-winning idea. Allowing refillable containers in stadiums means large volumes of plastic will not be generated in the first place. We have 1 important friendly amendment to 1161. In its current form, the proposal would allow the possibility that some operators might restrict the types of refillable containers to plastic bottles and actually encourage the production of more fossil-based climate-destroying plastics. So we recommend the final legislation eliminate that provision and specify that venue operators must allow fans to bring in empty beverage containers that are made from stainless steel, aluminum, or plastic. Finally, we welcome an amendment to the bill that would encourage stadium and arena operators to offer for sale beverages like beer and soda in refillable aluminum cups, like those used at the council's recent celebration of Earth Day, I believe, or Climate Week. Such cups with team logos could become collector's items and provide another vehicle for switching venues away from waste generation down to the field of waste prevention. We're glad to see the administration and sustainability advisor to the New York Yankees have both expressed support for this proposal. Intro 978 is another excellent idea for reducing waste in New York City. It provides that chains of 3 or more stores selling personal care products be required to donate to nonprofit organizations. It also directs the Department of Sanitation in conjunction with other city agencies to create a web portal to facilitate that. Citizen street trash surveys, such as those conducted by trash walker Anna Sachs, have revealed significant amounts of perfectly usable personal care products placed out for commercial trash collection in all 5 boroughs. This is a classic example of foolish and wasteful disposal practices, particularly at a time when we have so many people in need in this city. Intro 978 would set New York City on a nation-leading turnaround that would reduce waste burdens while assisting those New Yorkers most in need. Finally, we support Resolution 816 that would urge the state legislature to amend existing producer responsibility bill for batteries to include e-mobility device batteries. We all know of the many, many fires and incidents and threats to public safety from these batteries, and this legislation would be one step in addressing the concern. Although we hadn't prepared testimony on the car wash legislation, from everything we've heard today, that too sounds like a sensible piece of legislation, and so we will be supporting that as well. Thank you for your attention.
Hi, thank you, Chair Nurse, for holding this hearing, and Councilmember Farias for sticking around. I'm here representing Brooklyn Borough President Antonio Reynoso. It will come as no surprise that I am here on his behalf to call for the swift implementation of commercial waste zones in New York City. When Borough President Reynoso was chair of the Council's Sanitation Committee from 2014 to 2021, we routinely heard news reports and testimonies from workers in the industry that documented the many issues they face, including long hours, pressure to complete routes quickly, unsafe driving practices, speeding, running red lights, going the wrong way, falling asleep, helpers hanging off the back of trucks, employers hiring off the books, paying less than minimum wage, wage theft, use of trucks that failed to comply with safety regulations, failed inspections, a lot of the things that were brought up today. In response, the council and partners carefully drafted the legislation to address these issues, and it requires, among other things, city oversight of routes and schedules, compliance with federal regulations, whistleblower protections for employees, worker safety trainings, compliance with safe driving regulations, vehicle inspections, all kinds of equipment for safety on vehicles, and as you mentioned, the safety task force. The request for proposals also required consideration of compliance history, a health and safety plan, demonstrating the roadmap for exceeding existing safety and technology requirements. We don't know the full scope yet of the awardees, so it's hard for us to say whether the awards made will reward good actors in the industry. This is something we're watching closely. Unfortunately, due to the delay in implementation, all the problems I just outlined still remain. There was an increase in worker fatalities in the last year in US and Canada. There were at least 3 New Yorkers killed by private sanitation trucks in the last year and a half. So the borough president has already spoken to the council and to Commissioner Tisch to express his disappointment with the delays and just really wants to see a swift rollout in the program after sanitation announces the first zone awardee next year. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question for Local 831 because we talked about it on the other side, but how have the new containerization rules, and I'm sorry, it might be in the wrong question. Sorry, we discussed it on the commercial side, but how on the residential side have the new container rules impacted sanitation workers' daily routes?
That's still being worked out. It's not fully implemented. It's a little early to tell. The residential in the outer boroughs is not scheduled to even start until sometime next year or the year after. So I can say that the department works with 831 on a regular basis to try and make sure that these things will work. And you know, we'll see.
But for the new set out times when we have, you can put it out at 6 in containers. There's been no
It's
no
a little
reported
too early
impacts.
to tell. And putting things out at 8 o'clock at night, we've adjusted shifts in order to take that into accommodation. As I say, we try and work very closely with management to implement their approaches.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Oh,
Just one mention. You mentioned the facilities for women. We have about 250 women that are sanitation workers. That, to me, is still around 3%. Our head count is up at around 6,800 now. Our older facilities don't have adequate facilities for women. They're scandalous. The new facilities are built to it. If you were to contrast that with the fire department, whereas we have about 250, the fire department has more uniform employees, but they have about 148 at last count that are women. Every fire facility has adequate, as far as we know, adequate facilities for women. And our women, in particular, they do their best. You know, they're sanitation workers, but the conditions are not met on a 100% basis by any means.
well, I know there's a bunch of new facilities, so if you want to reach out and let us know the garage numbers, we can go do a visit.
We still have facilities that are falling apart.
Yeah, agreed. But if there are particular ones for the women facilities that you think are our top priority or particularly egregious or scandalous, we can absolutely push on that. We want our workers, especially women workers, to feel valued at work, and the infrastructure needs to be there to support that.
And, you know, as you know, many of our facilities are totally inadequate in size. We only have parking trucks on the city streets, which presents another problem with the members because we have to clean out the trucks when we get in before we drive them. They somehow become a depository for needles and things like that. So, you know, it's the department is trying. The budget is in a very tough condition. And I was told to say good things about the department by Harry, but blame everything on budget.
Well, we'll take it for now.
Thank you.
Please send our regards to Harry.
I certainly will.
Thank you.
Chair Nurse, just one last point, if I may, on Intro 978. This is a way to achieve the zero waste goals that were set forth in the zero waste legislation the council recently passed, and it can do so in a way that will benefit New Yorkers in need. So we hope that the sanitation department will come up with a specific program or introduce to you what its budget needs are to expand Donate New York City. It seems like that can be done without a major new expenditure of resources, and hopefully that can be something that can be included in the next budget because, again, it fulfills the dual goals of reducing waste and really helping New Yorkers. It's a very, very sensible piece of legislation. We hope it can move forward.
Agreed, and it could even be woven into the community recycling centers that are supposed to pop up at some point. I get it, there's a budget constraint, but is my opinion that if we don't invest on the front end, we're gonna be really paying out on the back end, just like everything else. So I'm definitely in support, and I support Councilmember Stevens and the intention, and you know, as we requested, if they could give us an understanding of what exactly that barrier is and not just say it's significant, it would require them to put some time and effort towards that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me. Next, we will have David Bitterman, Paul Zambroda, and Sam Manfredi. If you have not yet filled out a white slip with your name and information to register to testify, please do so in the back and provide it to one of the sergeants so you can be on the testimony list. And just a gentle reminder to please limit your testimony to 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Biederman. I'm president of Biederman Consulting, LLC. Just to be clear, I'm not testifying here today on any individual company or any individual sanitation department. I'm here today because it's very important for this committee and other elected and unelected officials in both New York City and throughout the United States to be reminded that solid waste companies of all sizes and the Department of Sanitation prioritize the health and safety of their employees, as well as the safety of the communities and neighborhoods in which they serve. I've had a career of the last 25 years in the solid waste industry that's reflected in the written material. I currently serve on the CWZ Safety Task Force. I look forward to it meeting once again. And I'm currently on the Business Integrity Commission's Trade Waste Advisory Board. I'm here to tell you that the solid waste industry's safety performance in the city has improved substantially over the past few years. According to the BIC's own data, during 2017 through 2019, licensees averaged nearly 4 fatal incidents each year. For each of the past 4 years, in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, licensees have had 1 fatal incident per year. And importantly, not a single private sector solid waste collection worker has been killed this year. I monitor safety all over the country with a particular interest in New York because this is where I'm from and my family lives here. This improvement is remarkable, far better than the national data. So why are we seeing this decline in certainly fatalities? Number one, most solid waste companies take safety very seriously. Number two, the leading associations provide a lot of resources to their members on safety. Third, a growing number of companies in the city are providing ongoing safety training to their frontline employees. And in just the past 9 months, I've been speaking at safety meetings at 6 of these companies and have another meeting tonight. And finally, the BIC has had a much greater focus on safety over the last few years, which includes both new regulations and heightened enforcement. Now, just very quickly, if the committee wants to improve and continue to improve worker safety in the sanitation and solid waste industry, I have 3 recommendations. Number one, e-bikes and scooters. E-bikes and scooters are a very serious threat to solid waste collection workers. I nearly got run over by one in Midtown when heading for the subway today. These vehicles are on city streets at all hours. They're ridden in complete disregard for the traffic law, and Paul's company and others have lots of videos that show you these guys crashing into trucks, going the wrong way, and causing problems. And Carter's employees, and presumably DSNY employees, also need to cross bike lanes from time to time to get to the trash. And it's a real struck-by risk. Secondly, lithium-ion batteries. We heard a little bit of testimony about lithium-ion batteries. I was surprised that the committee report for this hearing completely does not mention lithium-ion batteries. They cause fires in garbage trucks. That poses a threat to workers. I strongly encourage the council to provide more resources to DSNY and others to remind New Yorkers that it is illegal to dispose lithium-ion batteries in either the trash or recycling. And then finally, Vision Zero. We need to allocate more Vision Zero resources to educating pedestrians, bicyclists, and motorists about how to walk, drive, and bike safely in the city. Reckless driving, distracted driving, drunk driving, and speeding are principal causes of many of the collisions that the solid waste industry is involved in. Nothing we do as an industry is more important than making sure all of our employees come home to their families safely at the end of each day, and we will continue to work with the committee and others to make that happen. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name's Sam Manfredi. I'm a proud Teamster member for 36 years, and I currently work at a wonderful company, Cogent Waste Solutions. At Cogent Waste, safety is not just a priority, it's our culture. Serving the 5 boroughs of New York, we go above and beyond to ensure the well-being of all our team members and communities that we serve. Our commitment to safety begins with a strong focus on pre- and post-trip inspections, a practice that significantly reduces the likelihood of incidents. We take safety seriously, which is why we invest in the SMIT system training for our staff, and we are proud to have 3 certified SMIT system instructors as our safety managers. All employees are provided with up-to-date OSHA certification safety gear. Our dedication extends to even the smallest details. Our helpers are trained to assist in safe backing up of our trucks, minimizing potential risks. We've equipped our entire fleet with the state-of-the-art camera systems with 6 to 8 cameras on all our vehicles, including our service pickups, to the enhance visibility and safety. Additionally, we are proud to have former BIC Commissioner Noel Janelle working with us on safety issues. Help us revive our trade waste safety manual last year, and we will continue to consult with regarding safety and compliance. His input is instrumental as we played a significant role in shaping the safety rules that the industry uses today. We would like to express our gratitude to your trust in Cogent Waste and thank you for your time. Safety is not just a word for us, it's a way of life. And we're committed to keeping our team, our clients, and our community safe every day. Thank you very much for having me speak today.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Zambrata, and I'm the Safety Director for Mr. T Karting Corporation. I'm also the Safety Ambassador for SWANA's New York chapter. I've had the pleasure of working for Mr. T since 1995, and I'm part of a third generation of long and hard-working drivers and helpers. I have a commercial driver's license, and I can tell you with certainty that 20 years ago, the word safety was rarely heard in the solid waste companies in New York City. However, today, it's rare that you'll find a company that didn't hold safety paramount. About a year and a half ago, post-COVID, Mr. T and other solid waste companies were struggling to recruit and retain qualified drivers. In fact, there still is a nationwide driver shortage. As a result, I needed to drive one of our trucks to service our customers. During my route about 4 a.m. on Flushing Avenue in Brooklyn, my vehicle was rear-ended by a passenger vehicle at an estimated 30 miles per hour. In addition to the other vehicle being totaled and causing over $25,000 in damages to our vehicle, I was next to the truck and I was tossed up in the air like a rag doll, suffered broken bones, lacerations, and contusions. I was lucky to survive the collision because if I had been standing a little bit further to the left, the vehicle would have hit me head on and I probably wouldn't be here to tell you this story today. Before I took the truck out, I performed a thorough pre-trip inspection. When the motorist hit me and our truck, I was outside the truck in the rear with my parking brake set, with all my lights working and my four-way hazards on. My truck was pulled over to the side of the road so that other vehicles could safely pass. I complied with every operational and safety standard, yet I was still struck by someone who was either drunk, distracted by their phone, or asleep. At our company, as well as many others, we pride ourselves on innovation and forward thinking, especially when regarding safety. While we are not perfect, we strive for constant and never-ending improvement. It is important for the committee, as well as all New Yorkers, to recognize that our drivers and helpers are people too, and we deserve the same rights to a safe working environment as every other person in our city. It amazes me that cyclists, scooters, and other electronic forms of transportation share the road with other licensed drivers, and yet they are not required to learn or follow the same rules of the road that apply to us. I am happy to hear that accidents and injuries in our industry are down, and that's happening while the e-bikes and vehicles are getting more dangerous. The Daily News recently reported that this is the worst year for cycling fatalities since 1999. My company and I will continue to do our part in being safe, and we try every day to make it safer. We agree with the city holding us to high standards when it comes to safety, and we ask that they apply those same standards to the other users of the road. If we are going to continue to improve safety in the private sanitation industry and achieve the city's Vision Zero goals, we need stronger regulations of these e-bikes and similar modes of transportation, and tougher enforcement against those who violate our city's traffic laws. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. I had one question for you, Mr. Bitterman. In your time at SWANA, did DSNY engage you all for input or conversation on on containerization efforts they're trying to engage in, or the set out times?
We did not have any interaction with the SNY with regard to either of those regulations.
Okay. Is there anything that you want to offer about that?
So
in
As
terms
with
of how the
all-
industry is responding?
So containerization is a very significant change for the industry, and it's a very significant change for the customers, right? Customers have been used to putting their trash out at a certain time, in a certain way for decades, and now they're being asked to change that very dramatically, and for the most part, they're complying. And I walk around at night in the city when I'm here, and I see that that's taking place. There will be a challenge when it snows. When there's a foot of snow on the ground and they've plowed the streets, so there are piles on Atlantic Avenue or on Broadway, where are those containers going to go? I know Carters are wondering about that, and I'm interested in seeing how that particular scenario is dealt with regard to containerization.
Great, and I don't know if you have anything to offer about these clean idle trucks in terms of ticketing that these companies are getting for it. Have you had any conversations with the department on this, on the ticketing?
So a number of companies have approached me over the last 4 or 5 months raising concerns about a significant increase in the number of idling tickets that they're receiving. This was discussed at the most recent quarterly Business Integrity Commission Trade Waste Advisory Board meeting. The BIC, as they testified, mentioned that it's not their problem, it's DEP regulation that then you need to go to the oath to address from a adjudication perspective. I have been discussing this with several companies. Many companies have to go into the building to pull out the trash. It isn't sitting on the curb neatly that they can put it in within a minute. And they buy a truck that specifically is clean idle or runs as a regeneration type thing. And they're getting tickets even though very, very little is coming out of a tailpipe. In my judgment, based on my initial investigation of this, some thought needs to be given to amending that regulation to create some sort of exemption for clean idle trucks that serve the city's purposes of reducing our carbon footprint and reducing the impact of our waste on climate change.
And just another question, because I was trying to look one up. Does it say clean idle on the truck?
I don't know the answer to that. I would defer to my co-testifiants here.
In order to be DEP certified, there's a sticker on the side of the truck that says certified clean idle.
Great. I haven't seen one, so I haven't been looking to see it. So now I'm like on the lookout to see it. But before that, I wasn't actively noticing it. We did have oath here for a hearing, I think earlier this week. I'm losing track of time, but related to the noise complaint, a similar program with noise complaints. I wanted to ask, I didn't have time about that. Oath wasn't very helpful in the hearing in terms of providing any information, even data points, very little. And so I agree. If they're certifying these trucks, it shouldn't be subject to a complaint. Or if they're not going to certify it, or if they want it to be part of the complaint, then they need to figure that out. I don't have any other questions for you all. Thank you for coming and testifying. Yeah.
Chair, I would be glad to provide some data to you from the companies that I'm working with that demonstrate the magnitude of the increase over the last 18 months or so, just so you have some data for your future conversations with Oath and others.
That would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we'll have Anthony Lewis, Tyrell Boyd, and Dante Dodge.
Go first. Hello, good afternoon. My name is Dante Dodge, and I'm a lifelong resident of the Bronx and a proud sanitation worker and a member of Local 108. I would like to thank the committee chair, Sandy Nurse, for putting this hearing together to ensure the safety of sanitation worker is front and center. The sanitation industry is a hard and dangerous work. Our labor is essential to society well-being, yet many workers are constantly made to work in dangerous situations, life-threatening conditions also. I'm here to testify on both worlds, one where my employer took advantage of my youth and my lack of knowledge, and another where I proudly work in a culture of safety and get well compensated for my labor. When I first started working as a sanitation worker, the company I worked for took advantage of my need for employment and, more importantly, my lack of knowledge. While I worked at Sanitation Salvage, I was handed a clipboard, route keys, no PPE, and pretty much told, figure it out. There was no training provided, and I was getting paid cash wages while I worked as a helper. I then moved on to become a driver once I acquired my commercial driver's license, and on the average, I did 13 to 14-hour shifts. It didn't matter how many hours I worked, though. We were strictly only paid for 10. At the time, I didn't know the employers was committing wage theft. I finally decided to leave the industry and work in security. The city of New York did the right thing and protected workers by not continuing to allow sanitation salvage to put our lives and the lives of other New Yorkers at risk. This is why it's really important that we have a mechanism to hold employers accountable once the commercial wage zones are determined. Workers should be able to have a way to bring any claims on wage theft and safety concerns to the city and should be dealt with quick and in a swift manner. This is my ask to the council. I know what a true culture of safety is and what is to be valued and essential. Now that I work for unionized employers such as Action Cardin, my life has changed for the better. I get paid good wages for the hours that I work. I'm provided with the best PPE there is in the industry, and I receive benefits for me and my family. But most importantly, I have a career and I'm able to get home safely every night to my family. There shouldn't be any worker out there receiving any less for what they deserve and hardworking. A culture of safety can be achieved. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the Honorable Council Member and Chair Sandy Nurse and the rest of the Council Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to thank the Honorable Council Member and Chair Sandy Nurse and the Council members on the Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management for giving me the time to speak with you all today. My name is Anthony Lewis. I have over 25 years of experience as a roll-off driver. I currently work for Royal Waste Services for 8 years. Currently, I'm the shop steward at Royal Waste, which is the largest 813 union shop in New York City. In the time driving with Royal Waste, I strongly believe Royal is one of, or if not the safest employers there is in the business. In my time driving at Royal Waste, the safety procedures that we take should be the benchmark for all the companies throughout the city. We're big on going home the way you came in, protecting the public and protecting yourself. Most importantly, Royal provides us with a great quality of life, a 401k retirement, and full medical benefits for us and our families. As a shop steward, I can attest to Royal's service currently, excuse me, I can attest to Royal Waste Services currently has the following safety equipment and procedures in place. We have the Linux 360 camera, which monitors live feed inside the vehicle, outside, on both sides, and in the rear. And it also is equipped with a microphone. So, okay. We also have a mobile eye collision avoidance systems, which detects blind spot lane departure warning, pedestrian, cyclists, and headway monitoring. Where all our vehicles are equipped with speed controls are governed down to New York City's laws, speed laws. That's it. I don't want to take up too much time. Thank you for having us.
Good afternoon. My name is Terrell Boyd. I have been working for the sanitation industry since 2018. At first, I started working for unionized employees in Long Island, and now I am a member of Labor's Local 108. I would like to thank Chair Nurse and the rest of the community for allowing workers to voice and bring light to the rampant wage theft and dangerous working conditions that exist in the sanitation industry. Being a sanitation worker is no easy task. We put our lives at risk. Every time we go to work, our labor is essential, yet there are employees in this industry that take advantage of us and still do business in this city. Wage theft is widespread, and if you don't have reputation at the job, many times you simply take what you get. Many times you're putting your life at risk, not really realizing the dangerous until it's too late. I recently received a $30,000 settlement after filing a wage theft lawsuit against an employee that is still working in the city today. As we move forward and implement commercial waste zones, it is critical that there will be a mechanism where workers can speak up and bring claims of wage thefts and dangerous working conditions to light. There's no reason why employees who are constantly committing wage theft and putting their workers' lives at risk should still be allowed to do business with New York City. Working for employers who don't center their business practice on safety measures and protections is incredibly dangerous. At Liberty Ashes, I received no training. I worked under really unsafe conditions, and I worked alone. For example, I would usually lift 21 tons of garbage a night, followed by another night where I would lift 10 tons of cardboard by myself. This was really hard for my body, and not having benefits and proper health care only added to the stress. I always felt like I was getting robbed and my wages not being fully paid. There's need to be a way to hold employees accountable to ensure commercial waste zones truly achieve one of its main goals of lifting and protecting sanitation workers. Today, I feel like my voice is heard, and I want to help my fellow workers. Today, I have proper training and PPE. Both my employees and union truly care about my safety. At Action Carter, we have monthly safety meetings are provided both in class and hands-on training, and we are provided with the best PPE there is to work safely and affectionately. I am fully aware of my rights. I am compensated for my labor, and I have access to benefits and proper health care. This is what every worker deserves. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all for being here and for taking time coming. You're not taking up too much time, and we let the clock go for especially the purpose of the hearing, which is to hear from sanitation workers. So if there's anything beyond the testimony that you want to offer, you have the mic. I'm not going to cut you off. Feel free to offer anything you want to at this time.
At Royal Waste, we do provide safety training. We have safety meetings every 3 months, and we have retraining. We have a safety supervisor on duty at all times. With the camera system we also have a crew of, I think, 3 guys that watch the screens, the live feeds. So if you are doing something or the camera alerts them of any infractions, when you come in, you will be confronted and talked to and retrained on whatever it was, whether it be seat belt or you came too close to a vehicle, it alerts them back at the office.
Thank you.
All right, just for what I have to offer from my previous experience at Sanitation Salvage and working now at Action Carter is completely, literally two different worlds. Back when I was working for Sanitation Salvage, there was really no training. And what I noticed that changed in the industry was the training. And when I came into Action, it was a culture of safety. And I think those 2 weeks of training to become a driver or to be a helper, whatever position it is, it kind of gave me a clear outlook on what the job is and what's the dangers in the job. So when it comes to safety, I really think that, you know, things like that should be implemented. And also, like, when it comes to the zonings and whatnot, there should be something in place where if an employee have a situation where there's a theft going on or they don't feel safe doing their job, they should be able to express it and not, you know, get any retaliation from the employer while doing so. So I don't know, like, how that's going to work, but that's something that definitely should be at the forefront as well.
Thank you all. We really appreciate hearing from you, and you know you can reach out anytime if you have more concerns. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Next we will have Jose Osed. Is Jose still here? Okay, Connor Shaw.
What was Jose's last name? Jose Uset? Okay.
I'm so sorry, Vega. I could not pronounce that correctly. I apologize. Connor Shaw and Lisa Salomon, please. Okay, Jose, you may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Nurse and members of the City Council Committee Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. My name is Jose Vega. I'm a 29-year veteran in the labor movement and the president of United Waste as Recycling Workers, Local 393, as well as a pastor for a congregation, and just so happen to be in Council Member Farias' district. I'm proud to have devoted my life to service, and I'm here today with our political director, Connor Shaw, to speak on behalf of more than 400 private sanitation workers across New York City. And Mr. T is one of the employees that we had that just testified. We appreciate the opportunity to appear before this committee and speak about the importance of safety in the sanitation and recycling industry. Let me turn it over to my colleague, Connor.
Thank you, Chairwoman Nurse. I'm going to summarize my testimony. We'll provide written testimony. A lot of the points have been hit before. First, we'd like to thank this committee because you've made safety a priority, and as was testified before, it's really showing the impact in New York City, where we have been beating the trends and becoming one of the safer cities and destinations to work in sanitation, despite the troubles of such a large city, the difficulties that come with that. One of those difficulties is that there's currently 65,000 e-bikes and scooters in the city, and we hear from our members constantly about how they feel like it's swarms of bees. They're turning around to pick up trash, and people are zooming past them. And we would ask the council to consider using some of the Vision Zero money to prioritize sanitation worker safety. The other that we're going to mention, and I know that you're championing a bill on this, is the proper disposal of lithium batteries. One of the biggest concerns we hear from our members is the increase in batteries are causing an increase in truck fires. I believe there was 18 New York City sanitation truck fires last year caused by lithium batteries. These batteries are not a slow burn, and especially if they're in a back of a truck that has paper reuse or anything like that, it can cause a massive issue, especially in a city where you can't dump out safely in a lot of areas. You have to sometimes be driving with a fire in the back of your truck to find a dump out zone. And obviously that is something that is a major concern to our members. And as you are a champion of that, I know that's something that we're happy to hear that, and we fully support any efforts that you have to prioritize that. And one other thing that's not in our written testimony, but just hearing other folks' testimony and other concerns, one thing, I don't know if it's too late, but prioritizing union companies in the bidding process for the commercial waste zones, that is the best recourse for wage theft. That is the best recourse for safety issues. We have either biweekly or monthly safety meetings with our members, depending on the shop. And obviously, any wage theft issues, we have a grievance and arbitration process to address that. So if there was a way to prioritize union bidding contracts in the CWZ process, I think that would go a long way in addressing the concerns that have been stated before.
Good afternoon, and thank you to Chair Nurse for scheduling this hearing. My name is Lisa Solomon, and I am representing the New York City chapter of the Surfrider Foundation. Surfrider Foundation is a national group that protects our oceans and coasts for all people. And Surfrider Foundation has been running the Reusable New York City Coalition for 3 years now, which is a group of 40 local New York City organizations that are supporting different bills, including Bill Intro 1161, a local law allowing reusable beverage containers in sports venues. And the New York City chapter does a lot of beach cleanups, and mostly out in the Rockaways, and plastic bottles and caps are always some of the most commonly found items. Just so far this year, we've held about 17 beach cleanups with about 25 people per cleanup, and in total we found 680 plastic bottles, 2,471 bottle caps, and 1,323 plastic straws. So clearly plastic pollution has saturated our environment, our communities, and our bodies too. So we support this bill, and this bill will reduce plastic pollution, allow New Yorkers to not purchase and not use plastic bottles, and be able to use their own reusable water bottles. Thank you.
Thank you all, and yes, thank you for sharing that and for the cleanups you do, and I agree. And I think in our hearings around the CWZ, every sanitation hearing, we have a section of questions for CWZ, which is not appreciated all the time by the admin, even when because it's off topic for different hearings. But we agree that the best route is to prioritize companies with their workers are unionized to get through. We hope, we're very eagerly awaiting to see who has been awarded these, and for those who, any non-union folks that have, I think we should do everything we can to support unionizing those shops. So thank you.
Thank you. For our next panel, we will have Brian Castalia, Renee Del Carmen, and Hector Vasquez.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much to Chair Nurse and the Council for the opportunity to testify today. And I'd like to start by applauding the Council on its commitment to rigorously engaging with solid waste issues and by consistently bringing to the forefront the community-focused and sensitive mentality that we firmly believe is the way forward when it comes to the layered crises facing our communities around waste and climate change. I'm the executive director of Sure We Can, a redemption center and an advocacy organization that is New York's only nonprofit dedicated to the service of the independent recyclers who collect and redeem the bottles and cans that others discard. I'm here also as a representative of and advocate for the bottle bill itself, the most effective recycling system that exists in our city and state, which each year diverts hundreds of thousands of tons of waste while distributing millions of dollars into environmental justice communities, also creating a low barrier way for marginalized folks to work, all at no cost to the city or state. It even promotes the well-being of city sanitation workers by reducing the volume of waste that they need to haul. As we look for solutions to the daunting problems posed by the waste and climate crises, we can't afford to ignore systems like the bottle bill that are already working and that, despite institutional neglect, are making real strides in diverting waste and cleaning and empowering our communities. The stakes of the waste crisis are extremely high, and it demands comprehensive, multi-front solutions. The deposit model could be expanded and used to collect any kind of material, including refillables. Independent recyclers could be supported in transitioning into more formal employment, finally accessing the livelihoods and security their commitment to our communities has earned. Yet these types of transformations are rarely entertained, more centralized and exclusive waste systems are promoted, and even a simple update to the bottle bill at the state level is a politically grueling task. But New York City doesn't need to wait for the state's permission to take action. It can lead the way. The recyclers who work with Sure We Can are ready to be full participants in waste management, to offer their work and ideas and share their results. And in order to do so, they need recognition and support. If our aim is truly a sustainable urban culture, we must be sensitive to the needs and experiences of communities who have borne and continue to bear the burdens of overconsumption and profligate waste, and design approaches that support their labor, take advantage of their wisdom, and redress wrongs, especially as we consider fast-moving holistic changes like containerization, which stands to powerfully affect those who see waste not as trash, but a resource for recycling or reuse. Once again, I just want to applaud the Council for tackling these issues. I'd also like to take a moment to honor, on the record, my friend and colleague Ryan Carson, who was tragically killed a few weeks ago, and who was a tireless advocate for transformative waste policy and for workers. In his name, let's keep at it, and together push for a New York where everyone can sustainably thrive. Thank you. I'll also be interpreting for my friend Renee Del Carmen.
Hi, good afternoon, Sandy Nursing. I'm speaking English good, I'm speaking Spanish. Mi nombre es Manuel René del Carmen Ordaz. Trabajo en Short Weekend desde el 2014. Short Weekend lo conozco desde que se fundó. Antes también fui reciclador. Comencé a reciclar por necesidad. Me encontré en una situación vulnerable y me vi obligado a la necesidad de reciclar. Reciclando me ayudó a reconocer, a ayudarme y a aprender más de nuestra sociedad. También me ayudó a resolver mis necesidades económicas. Trabajé como reciclador en Manhattan durante 7 años. Hoy estoy manejando el espacio y el sistema de reciclaje de la organización Short Weekend. El trabajo de reciclar me dio esfuerzo para ayudar a nuestro medio ambiente, a la misma vez de resolver mis gastos de renta y alimentación. Mentalmente me empujó a restablecer mi mentalidad de confusiones emocionales. El sistema ayuda a las personas en situaciones difíciles y también ayuda a la sociedad a controlar sus residuos sólidos, pero necesita más apoyo para seguir trabajando para la ciudad, y los recicladores que hacen que este sistema funcione también necesitan ser respaldados y apoyados. Mi comunidad y yo buscamos el reconocimiento y la oportunidad de trabajos vinculados al reciclaje, y queremos ser incluidos en la conversación sobre contenedores de barra en la calle. Por su fina atención, muchas gracias.
My name is Manuel René del Carmen Ordaz. I've worked at Sure We Can since 2014. I became aware of Sure We Can when it was founded, back when I was a recycler, which I started doing out of necessity. I found myself in a vulnerable situation that obligated me to recycle. Recycling helped me come to know how to help myself and learn more about our society. It also helped me meet my economic needs. I worked as a recycler in Manhattan for 7 years, and today I'm managing the whole space and recycling system at the Sure We Can organization. The work of recycling gave me strength to help our environment and at the same time to meet my daily needs and costs like rent, food, and supplies. Mentally, it pushed me to stabilize my mind and support my mental health. It served me like therapy and helped me understand better the situation in which all of us live. The system helps support people in the most difficult situations and also helps the city manage its solid waste, but it needs better support to continue working, and the recyclers that make this system work need to be respected and supported too. My community and I seek recognition and opportunity for jobs related to recycling, and we ask to be included in the conversation around containerization on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you both. Muchas gracias, Renee. And also just want to acknowledge and just note that it's just how awful it is that we don't have Ryan here. because I know he would be testifying today. So thank you all. We appreciate what the canners do in the canning community. I really hope to see you all in more space, and I think it would be really important for New York City to formally recognize the work that you all do and not try to find ways to take credit for it. And I really hope that this year we can actually pass this legislation at the state level, because especially, not just the bottle bill, but especially the EPR, which I know you all have thrown down on, because as we're facing this fiscal cliff, we need ways to generate revenue for our operations, as well as hit those zero waste goals we've just spent all this time working on. So, thank you for what you do, and just really appreciate you staying all the way through and testifying.
Thank you so much, Councilmember.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Gracias.
Thank you. Gracias por su testimonio. Are there any others present who will have, any others present who would like to testify in person? No? Okay, and we will move to the participants on Zoom. First, we will hear from Dominic Romeo. As a reminder to all participants on Zoom, please limit your testimony to 2 minutes. Dominic, you may unmute yourself and begin testimony.
Good morning or good afternoon. Thank you, City Council Member Botcher and Nurse, as well as Speaker Adams and the Department of Sanitation, who had actually showed up today. Just to clarify a few things, I was listening to some of the panel earlier from the Department of Sanitation. I wanted to clarify a few points that they made. Early morning pickups, you are only allowed to register for those early morning pickups in January of each year. So if I was to say, me get up early and try to throw out my garbage then, I would have to wait an entire year for that. Containerization of paper and cardboard is what I'm referring to. Currently, we're allowed to throw out cardboard that's tied up without a bag, because the bag would be too big to put in a container. We're allowed to throw out cardboard outside without a container, but we are not allowed to throw out paper and small pieces of cardboard. I've received no phone calls from the members who had testified early whatsoever, and I've only received 3 emails. One was from Barbara Beretta, and she's the deputy director, and then 2 emails from Brian Nolan, who is the supervisor for central correspondence. So I'm not sure what they mean by they've reached out to me, because I keep good records on this. But moving into my testimony, it has been 178 days since this poorly thought out regulation was enacted, where us supers and porters have to go back to work at 8 p.m. to toss out our building trash. We have missed 73 nights so far, in which our families are no longer able to see us, and our personal lives have been destroyed because of this. I'm asking City Council, how many more nights do you expect us supers and porters to suffer through? Winter is coming, and we will now have to deal with freezing temperatures, boiler issues, shoveling of ice and snow. I'm sorry? Excuse me?
Your time has expired. Please wrap up as quickly as possible, as practicable. Thank you.
All right. I had a whole bunch of things to say, but I just can't finish under these timelines. I just think it's completely rude. That this is why you don't understand what we're saying, is because you don't give us enough time to say it. And then we play this telephone game where you're trying to relay these messages to the Department of Sanitation, and they're not getting through to them. So now we're in the same situation where you're not hearing our voice, because we're only allowed 2 minutes to say it, and we were only allowed 2 minutes to contradict some of the things that
We're fully happy to hear your testimony. Do you want to continue with your points?
I don't have any more time, Councilmember Nurse.
I'm giving you an extra minute or 2 if you'd like to complete,
Okay.
but please stick on topic.
I will. We gave you an alternative plan, which consists of allowing us to throw out paper and trash. Currently, we're not allowed to do paper and cardboard. Currently, we're only allowed to throw out cardboard. We really do need the composting program put into place, which will also reduce our bags. And we're asking also for a 9 a.m. finding time, because now we have to sweep our sidewalks and also bring in those containers. And we're not against containers. We actually respect them. We know that this is beneficial for the reduction in the rats. We just need our lives back, is all we're asking for. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Romeo. Next will be Alia Sumro, followed by Don Henry, and then Anna Sachs. Alia, you may unmute yourself.
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Alia Sumro, and I'm the Deputy Director for New York City Policy at the New York League of Conservation Voters. Thank you, Chair Nurse and members of the Committee on Sanitation for the opportunity to testify. NYLCV supports the passage of Intro 1161, sponsored by Councilmember Abreu. The bill would require professional and collegiate sports venues to allow attendees to enter the venue with reusable beverage containers and establish penalties for venues that fail to comply. We also support Reso 816, sponsored by Councilmember Nurse, which calls upon the New York State Legislature to pass and the governor to sign the rechargeable battery recycling law. The bill this resolution is in support of will be included in NYLCV's 2023 New York State Environmental Scorecard this year. Single-use plastic products, which are designed to be used once and thrown away afterwards, like the ones thrown away in sports venues, contribute to our reliance on fossil fuels, harm residents, our waterways, and threaten the health of our local wildlife. For each ounce of polyethylene produced, the plastic most commonly used in single-use plastics, 1 ounce of carbon dioxide is emitted. When plastics are sent to landfills, which are historically located in low-income communities of color, they take centuries to decompose. Additionally, Reso 816 is in support of a state bill that would maximize the removal of unwanted rechargeable batteries from the solid waste stream, and this would help to reduce the amount of waste being shipped to landfills. Currently, Intro 1161 is drafted to allow stadiums and arenas to decide what types of container materials and sizes are allowed in the venues. To strengthen this bill even more, we recommend that the bill be amended so that the type of bottle materials are not left to the discretion of venues. Instead, at the very least, the bill should specify that aluminum and stainless steel containers be accepted. NYLCV also recommends that the bill include a provision urging stadiums to offer refillable cups and to allow attendees to use any reusable containers sold at stadiums. For instance, if a souvenir cup is sold at the venue, attendees should be able to refill them. We support both Intro 1161 and Reso 816, and we urge Council to vote yes when they come up for a vote. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Next will be Don Henry.
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. I am here to testify in support of Intro 1161. I am Don Henry, Senior Advisor for Beyond Plastic. It's a project at Benetton College with a mission to end plastic pollution everywhere. It is a fact that nearly 10 billion tons of plastic have been produced since 1950, and sadly only 9% has been recycled. Global plastic production is projected to increase by 40% by 2030. You may say, what's wrong with that? Well, we know that the ill effects of micro and nanoplastics on the body will continue to increase because plastic is produced with multiple toxic chemicals like formaldehyde, PFAS, and phthalates. And for every pound of plastic in the ocean, we have 3 pounds of fish, so it's quickly catching up to the fish population. And facilities that produce plastics and manage plastic waste, they're predominantly located in communities of color and the underprivileged. Packaging accounts for about 40% of plastics produced, so Intro 1161 directly gets at the problem. There are several sports venues in New York City, including 5 major league teams. The New York Yankees alone saw over 3.2 million visitors in 2023. When we allow these visitors to use their own beverage containers, we are reducing the demand of single-use plastic packaging and, by extension, plastic production. I want to take a second to just let everybody know that New York's Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, it's for consideration before the New York Legislature, and this fits nicely with Intro 1161. It will accomplish some important goals like reducing packaging and toxin, incentivize reuse and refill system, and thank you, I'll wrap up. And importantly for New York City, it will relieve taxpayers of the burden of managing waste and save New York, potentially the city, over $100 million a year. So I really appreciate you allowing me to testify in support of Intro 1161, and I'll remain available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Next, we will have Anna Sachs, followed by Jackie Nunez and Kira Cruz. Anna, you may unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm here in strong support of Intro 978. I want to show you a few items that I've gotten from CVS and Dwayne Reed's trash in the past few weeks. These are toothpaste for kids. I don't know if you could see it, but it's sealed and it doesn't expire until 2025. Here's some toothpaste that I'm using for myself, and here's some shampoo. So CVS, Dwayne Reed, all these chains discard usable items that for pretty arbitrary reasons. If the packaging, external packaging is damaged, if the item was returned, if there is new packaging and the manufacturer or the producer has ordered that the old packaging be removed from the shelves. And I haven't bought shampoo, conditioner, toothpaste for the past 5 years, as long as I've been doing it, because I find these so frequently. Sometimes also the tampons in a box will be thrown out of the box, and then they might squeeze a toothpaste tube on top of it, so then no one can salvage it. This is popular. I started a Change.org petition 5 years ago. It has 500,000 signatures. It's common sense. These are some of the most in need items by shelters, far more than food, because food is in plenty supply, unfortunately, because we overproduce, but these items are really hard for shelters to come by. Oftentimes they have to purchase it out of their own budget. We currently have a large population of people in need, especially with the migrant crisis, people who come here having nothing. And if we pass this, we'll be in the first in the nation, if not the world, to specifically have a donate, don't dump law for hygiene items. Some places already have donate, don't dump laws for food, but I think that hygiene items makes a lot of sense given how in need these are. I also want to push back a little bit that DSNY, I would like to see DSNY and New York City as a whole invest more in creating a circular system that prioritizes reuse. And so I actually don't think it would require that much resources to implement once you set up the partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Jackie Nunez.
Okay. Hi. Hello. My name is Jackie Nunez. I'm the founder of the Last Plastic Straw and Advocacy and Engagement Manager for Plastic Pollution Coalition, and I'm speaking on behalf of Plastic Pollution Coalition and the Last Plastic Straw. We're in support of Intro 1161 BYO bottle for events legislation that's allowing fans and patrons to bring their own reusable water bottles to sports venues in New York City. Thank you for allowing this opportunity to speak to your community today, and to Council Member Sean Abreu for introducing this important legislation. I just think it's really great that you guys are considering this in your city. I just want to bring a couple facts here that humans purchase about 1 million plastic bottles per minute, and it's predicted that by 2050, the oceans will contain more plastic by weight than fish in the ocean if we continue on this path. Also, 99% of plastics made from fossil fuels, as you know, and also it contributes to the climate emissions and pollution at every stage of its existence, from extraction to waste. The Center for International Environmental Law estimates that plastics could account for up to 15% of the world's carbon budget by 2050 if the decisive action is not taken. So again, I commend you guys for introducing this law and considering this. And contrary to what plastics industry would like you to believe, we do not have a plastic waste problem. We have a wasteful plastic problem, and single-use plastic water bottles and cups for events fall into that category of wasteful plastic. According to Clean Water Action's Rethink Disposal campaign for reuse, we need to reduce the ever-growing use of single-use disposable plastic, as well as lower the amount of micro and nanoplastics contaminating our air, oceans, and created throughout the plastics life cycle. By doing this, we also avoid ingestion of chemicals that leach from plastic bottles into the water we drink. To do this, remedy is simple. Drink water from tap or get in the habit of carrying glass or metal water bottles when we go out. The Plastic Pollution Coalition has been working with coalition partners since 2013 with our Refill Revolution campaign for music festivals and venues, and also as a founding partner of the Sustainable Concerts Working Group in stadiums, festivals, and events through the BYO Bottle campaign. Bring your own reuse and refill systems work, and it diverts thousands of single-use plastic bottles and cups per event. We have seen nothing but net positive results for both fans, musicians, athletes, and venues and communities that are tasked to handle the waste from this mass gathering events. Plastic Pollution Coalition supports legislative and regulatory solutions that address the plastic pollution crisis at the source, reduce plastic production and use, and center environmental justice, extend producer responsibility by holding corporations accountable, and to create policies that support a regenerative circular society free of plastic pollution and its toxic impacts. We too are in agreement with NRDC, Surfrider, and others in recommending that an amendment to the provision that specifies that venues determine one type of reusable beverage container permitted to instead allow a patron to bring their own metal, aluminum, or plastic reusable bottle to New York City sports venues. With this amendment, we are in full support of the passage of this legislation to allow fans to bring their own reusable water bottles to events. Lastly, as we move away from the dark ages of fossil fuel dependence and wasted resources towards a more just and equitable solutions to plastic pollution through our regulatory framework, all reuse and refillable systems need to include a BYO component to stay just and equitable for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Kira Cruz.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of introduction number 1161. My name is Kira Cruz, Debris Free Sea Coordinator for Clean Ocean Action, or COA for short, a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Long Branch, New Jersey. COA formed in 1984 to investigate sources, effects, and solutions of ocean pollution, and today is a leading local, regional, and national voice whose mission is to improve the degraded water quality of the marine waters off the New Jersey-New York coast. We do research on pollution issues affecting the marine environment, then formulate policy and campaigns to eliminate pollution at the source, including plastic pollution. Clean Ocean Action hosts a statewide semi-annual event called Beach Sweeps in New Jersey. It's the largest volunteer environmental event in New Jersey. COA's Beach Sweep started in 1985 at one cleanup site with 75 volunteers. Fast forward 38 years, and the program now hosts 77 sites statewide with thousands of dedicated volunteers. The data we collect is used to monitor trends and items collected and is used to support legislative and policy efforts at the local, state, regional, as well as national levels to reduce litter and pollution. Over the years, the one trend that has been consistent: plastics are a devastating problem. Each year in the Beach Sweeps data, the category of plastics, including foam plastics, dominates the total items collected by a landslide. In relation to the bill under consideration, I will highlight our data about plastic bottles and the associated plastic caps. In 2022, 10,051 plastic beverage bottles and 52,512 bottle caps were found during our beach sweeps. From 2017 to 2022, a total of 63,825 plastic beverage bottles and 301,216 bottle caps were removed during the beach sweeps. The ocean is shared between New York and New Jersey, and unfortunately, so is the pollution. As such, Clean Ocean Action applauds the New York City Council for considering this bill and supports legislation to reduce sources of litter, including plastic bottle usage, and by extension, demand for single-use plastics to protect communities, waterways, and the ocean downstream. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Wendy Frank.
Okay, that is our hearing for today. Thank you everyone who gave testimony, to all the workers who are here today, as well as the admin for coming and participating. This concludes our hearing.